Hello. Oh, we don't need the timer
Let's
on
go.
right now. Hello, welcome, birthday cake, MP. How are you,
Yeah.
Landho?
Oh, hello, birthday cake. Hello, MP. Welcome, welcome.
I was microwaving the last of my mulled apple cider from my mother, and I have to go
Ooh.
get it. It wasn't. I started a little too late, so I have to go grab it. And then I have to do other things to start doing this. But yeah, I mean, we usually just start
with the same issue.
Oh yeah. I was having
yeah.
an issue with the reactive Fuji. No, what my day was is I got a flat pack piece of furniture that I put together, and then I made dinner.
Got scared. I thought you were about to say flat tire.
Oh no! Thank God. Whoosh. No, flat pack. I got a flat pack piece of furniture, that I put together, and then basically that went right into having to make dinner. So I was very busy.
Oh man.
But I'll be right back.
Okay, well, I guess I shall be your guys' entertainment while Ori is off getting her drink. I have Earl Grey tea with honey and milk and an oatmeal cookie tonight, so I'm feeling pretty good. Not too shabby. Hope everyone else's days are going very well. It got cold today. It got really cold. And maybe that was just this morning. I don't know, but I was freezing. Ooh, 6 meals of home-cooked Chinese food prepared. That is smart, birthday cake. What did you end up making? Like lo mein or anything like that? I'm so curious. See, I feel like there's some dishes I could prepare, like some Chinese foods I can prepare, and then others I'm just like, I don't have the right ingredients and I don't feel like going to the store right now. Or it's just like a sad stir-fry knockoff. It's just like whatever I got in the house thrown in a pan. It's like, yep, this is stir-fry.
I'm so happy. My house has finally gotten to the point where I have like ingredients and I can just be like, I'm gonna make this today, and I have the ingredients. Because that was something that was always like really special to me about like when I lived with my parents. It was like, you don't have to like worry about it. It's like, oh, I want, like, here's the meat we have, I want to make this today, I have all the other ingredients, you know, maybe not the fresh stuff, but like all the spices, all the vinegars, all the, you know, sauces,
that's what you
like
need.
all
that's
those sort of things,
good stuff.
Yeah, so it's like I finally got Shaolin wine, which is a big ingredient in a bunch of dishes that we like to make, and I can't find it in the stores. So I finally caved, and I was just like, Amazon, do you have it? Yes, okay, I need it. I need it really bad, please.
Brilliant.
Everything is calling for this. So I got it. And it came in a very fancy thing, even though it's cooking wine. But, hello, Pastry Puff.
Hey, Pastry Puff.
Definitely
welcome,
happy
welcome.
to have it be that way now, you know? Okay, let me add... Why do I not
see, I am in a position where by the time I get home, dinner's already made, so I just eat whatever everyone else is eating. Ooh, lemon chicken, beef with black bean sauce, and white rice on the side. Yum, birthday cake.
Did I do stupid?
That sounds really, really good. I don't know, did you do a stupid?
I don't know if I did a stupid.
Oh no. Ori, don't do a stupid.
I thought I drew this. I don't know if I did a stupid or not.
Is it a different layer, maybe?
No. It wouldn't be in here. It would be...
Oh, you're looking at something else that we can't see.
I'm looking at my iPad. Because that's where I would have done it.
We definitely can't see that.
And it should have been... Is it here? Ah, okay, it's just named wrong. I'm like, I drew this shit. Like, where is it? Just named wrong. That's what the problem is. Oh, I think is it named wrong because we cut it up? That might be why.
Oh, maybe. We did splice some entries.
I just don't know when we did it. When we moved it around. So that might be why it's named weird. Save to files.
A couple times we did that.
Oh no, I'm just bad at reading. It's named correctly. I'm just bad at reading shit. Woo! Ooh, pen, go fly.
It's that kind of Tuesday, y'all. It's that kind of Tuesday.
Well, I posted my first lazy voiceover today.
Yay! Go,
Yeah,
Ori!
guys. So if you want more, if you somehow want to hear my voice even more and watch even more, like a little more focused on the comic drawing part, yeah, I know, Enthuse. Then you can go to, it's on Instagram Reels, it's on our Folding Planets TikTok, it's on our Folding Planets YouTube channel. Mars and I are trying to get in to do this a little more. We're doing a little more on the like
actual good content
Reels
creators, you guys.
we're being good
trying so
content
hard.
creators, but we're being lazy content creators, guys. That's the goal. My goal is to post
It's
consistently,
definitely lazy,
but not
'cause
crazily
we
make
both
it
have 9 to
a lot of
5s.
stuff for ourselves. It's the culprit from Duncan.
Some of us have 8 to 4s.
Mind changes. But yes, I need to download this, please.
Hudson looking like a blank. Oh no!
Oh no!
Wait, not a blank, more blank.
Yeah, well.
I thought you were referencing City of Blank Enthuse.
Well, I knew you were Mars, so we got there. It's okay.
Well, I definitely was,
Let's
because
drag
that's how
this
I
in
read
here.
it, but my brain just saw what it wanted to see.
Let's get
That
here.
was the
Look at all this
problem.
not blank Hudson and
Ooh.
Sinnott and Malone.
Guys, look at all the pretty, colorful sketches.
Yes. Oh, okay. I needed to say this. This is totally going in one of the shorts later, but I had to say this. So there's like a lot of sadness, upset about the fact that
He is so Urple.
my brain is dead. That's what it's about. Hold on. Let me
Yes.
make sure nothing weird
There
is
you
on
go.
this layer.
It's okay. Mine is too.
No, okay. I was watching a thing and it was basically like this artist that I like. She had made a video a while ago, and it was about how to identify art as AI. And she meant to do it in the sense of that it was supposed to be like how to judge, like, is this AI or is this a person? And just for like your personal benefit, right? For you to be like, I'm not going to support this person, I think they're AI. Not with the intent of having it be like, we're going to call you out, you know, and all this sort of stuff. But of course, people suck, and that's what was happening because, you know, a lot of people are scared, and there's a lot of like you know, concern about it. And but it used to be that like you could show like sketches, and if you showed your sketch, it was like, okay, you proved that you're not AI. But unfortunately, AI can make sketches backwards, basically, from an AI generated image. They can make a sketch of it, a sketch version of it. So you can't even just show your sketches and stuff. And okay, it's like, okay, so you can do like a speed paint. And while that's still genuinely pretty good, especially like the screen recording versions, that where you like actually see the art program you're working in and not just like the blank canvas suddenly get stuff on it. They actually have the ability, AI is now generating those too. And while they're kind of wonky and weird,
What?
yeah, and while they're kind of sometimes like out of order and stuff, some artists do work out of order. Now it's on the rarer side, but it's still like not a 100% way to do it. But I realized something, guys. I realized something. Because I sketch in Rainbow, there's no fucking way that AI can regenerate me, because they have their specific colors. Like the bros have their specific colors. I have a specific sketch like render style. You can really see it here with like the colors and stuff, right? Like this is like, you know, this is like a sketch rendered sketch, you know, like this Milano and stuff, where you can like see the different layers and stuff. But it's like, nobody can, you know, the colors have purpose. No, birthday cake, no. I'm not that cool. Yeah, they can't tell what person is which color. They have no way of knowing, you know, what dude is what.
Exactly.
Especially, like, Hotsun has no indication that he's purple, but he's purple, you know? And, like, oh, it's like certain
Guys,
objects have certain colors, and
Not
I keep
just
it
for our
consistent.
benefit, it's for
Well, I mean, it is mostly for my
beat the
benefit.
AI.
I will say it does make my sketches very pretty. I will say, you know, okay,
really
as a proto baby artist, it was definitely like, oh, you know, wow, these artists have such pretty like sketchbooks and stuff, and all their sketches look so cool and all this sort of stuff. And I gotta say, proudly, I'm one of them cool sketch artists now. Because my sketches
you
also
are.
look cool. There's just especially these I did today, these 3, just like, I don't know, the quality is just like, it has like a soft quality to it. It's a vibe. But, you know, I
really love the expressions in this entry.
Oh, yeah.
They're just so good.
I'm glad. There was one, it's not here because I have basically all of these panels in one thing to do to sketch first before I import it in. But there's this Hotsun panel. I struggled with his expression. I really had a while to get who. Right, Pastry Puff? It does. I do it because it specifically helps me about that, to keep the characters straight. And just in general, I always found that it was like, okay, even when you like lighten, you know, you like lower the opacity on like the lower layer, after a while, after a certain amount of layers, it's still just a lot of like gray black, you know, like there's still a lot of on top of each other, and you keep lowering it, and eventually the opacity gets to a point where you lose the lightest opacity lines, you know, as you keep lowering the opacity. And it's like, okay, how do I have like all of this stuff visual without, 1, having a bajillion fucking layers, and 2, just being able to see and just using different colors. And, you know, because we have many characters, but you can see here I ditched it with Aster a little bit here because it was just, I needed a big contrast color. I didn't need it to be darker. I needed it to be very contrasty so I could really just get where his wings were and stuff. But it's like, AI can't generate that. Because there is a rhyme or reason to it. It's a very
step ahead of the game.
And it's like, you know, I know Birthday Cake, you know, jokes about updating the AI database now. But what's really interesting, I think, is the fact that I think that it really would be very difficult even for if an AI tried to recreate this sort of sketching. Just because while there is a rhyme or reason, I don't think it's in a way that like an AI can do it, right? Because it's like you say, you can see it with like even the speed paints that they do create. It's like, this order doesn't feel right. And that's the problem with AI. There's a lot of times when it's like you can intuit pretty well a lot, you know, even ChatGPT and stuff, people talk about it all the time. And you can intuit like, oh, this is AI. But the problem is proving that it's AI. That's where the issue is. It's very easy to spot. It's very difficult to prove. And because people are innocent until proven guilty, it just makes this really gray water area. And now that's not saying, like, don't change that, right? Like, people should still be innocent until proven guilty. But it is very, like, this gray, wishy-wash area.
Oh, yeah.
Alrighty.
It makes being an artist such a fun time right now.
But speaking of gray, wishy-wash area...
Ah, yes! What a tough area, too.
Yeah, really,
we are talking about characters that matter, because, guys, everyone's important, but some are more important than others.
Thank you, Enthuse. I pride myself greatly on these amazing transitions.
Honestly, sometimes I just wait for Ori to transition because I'm like, oh, we going? Okay, we going. Like, I very rarely do the transition because I'm like, Ori, you ready? You ready? Oh, crap!
Oh, you're ready?
My cookie melted into my tea!
Oh, no!
It's just a soggy cookie.
Oh, no, Mars!
Brief tangent, you guys.
No, I did the transition. No, I'm joking.
No, we gotta go back. This is important. This is my backstory. I'm part of the main cast. They must know. My
Lost
mom
his
made cookies. And they froze in the fridge. Don't ask. They weren't in the freezer. They were definitely in the fridge. But
Yeah, that
they were
happens.
hard. But they were still chewy, so it wasn't bad. And I didn't bother getting a plate because I was like, I have my coffee cup and it's big enough to fit on the rim. I can just plop it.
That's how you
over top
stroopwafel.
tea. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I could stroopwafel this, no problem. And, you know, I could. It worked out great. What I didn't realize was the steam and heat from my tea would defrost the cookie.
Yeah.
I just looked over. The sides are still perfect.
Oh yeah, the middle. Yeah. But
It's
see,
just
that's
tagging
exactly
into the tea.
why
I'm
you
like, oh,
stroop
crap.
waffle, but you also have to watch it.
Well, I forgot to watch it. Oh, that's rough birthday cake.
I find the worst thing is when your milk freezes because it separates it. You know, like it's not
Ew.
because like I wouldn't say it's gross. Like it does fine. You just you have to wait for it to rethaw because otherwise you get like a weird. It's like somehow waterier. It's weird. I don't understand.
Ew. Oh, that's bad.
And just like soggy
Induce.
cookies,
What a
some
beautiful
characters
transition.
simply fall apart on close examination.
apart.
There you go. Beautiful.
What a
Enthused.
good
Bringing it back.
transition.
Amazing.
Enthused, can we hire you?
I mean, that you
You're
know,
good at these.
they volunteer their time, you know, as a mod. Close enough.
This is very true.
This is a non-profit organization.
very
Actually, legally, this is a non-profit organization. Dylan
Actually
confirmed.
nonprofit.
Yeah, because we're literally one,
We
not
have
doing it for profit,
confirmation.
and two, not making profits. So,
There we go.
ta-da! So,
characters. What characters matter? Now, we all know the hierarchy of characters, or at least most of them. You have your main cast of characters, usually consisting of your main character, maybe a side character or two. You have your secondary characters that get a little bit of the spotlight, but not often as much as the main characters. And then what was it you called it the other day, Ori? Tertiary
yeah, so we went from you have your primary characters, right? Your main character,
Okay.
possibly they're like, you know, and anybody else. In Outcast, I would say
You just
definitely
have, like,
Hotsun.
Quadra something or
Well, yeah,
other.
so we got down, right? So you've Hotsun is the main character, he's a primary, and I would say Milano is also the primary character, and also Everett, which you'll get to realize later on. We have our trio, our big three, right? They're our primary characters. Then you have the secondary
They're
characters,
the big boys.
like Ferrix and Aster and Sinnit.
Aster.
And then Everett has two sort of side guys of Perrin and Saiga. And they're like your
Very
sort
cool.
of
You guys are gonna love them.
yeah, they're sort of in your secondary character place.
Or
But then
hate their
you have
guts. Either
like
action would be appropriate.
yeah, and then you have the tertiary characters, right? Where they're definitely they're still named and you still like care about them. And this is I feel like where the big
Tertiary characters as interchangeably with supporting casts.
yeah, and this is
In
where I
that
feel
they're there, you know who they are, but you don't know everything about them. The story is not about
But a
them,
lot of times
there is
people-
just enough to latch on to.
there's enough to latch onto, but they're also like this is where your like good spin-off fodder comes from a lot of, right? Like these are the characters where the people are like,
absolutely.
oh, this is where I'm headcanon a lot. And then I had what I had deemed the quadrinary characters, right? We're trying to get to the fourth quadrinary, however you want to say it. I don't know.
Let it be known,
Tetrary.
this is not
What-
an actual
what level of 40
Ori and I just have way too many fucking characters.
And these are characters that you would say are like, they are expendable, but they're still named and they're not done badly. They still have a personality, right? When done well, every named character should be recognizable, but not every named character needs to be fleshed out, right? And this is where I think
not every
really
single one needs
shines
to be explored.
in these like these fourth level characters, right? And so basically this got brought up because we watched a show called Samurai Flamenco, but it got brought up in Outcast
Very
because I
good and very
decided
underrated.
that making sense in our comic, both these so Everett, you have Everett, and he has these two secondaries to him, are Saiga and Perrin. If you are in the Ko-fi, you can see their sort of like idea
Designs?
concept art and stuff. But I thought that it would be very fitting. They needed to have sort of subordinates under them as well. And this is where the really like fourth level character starts, where it's like they're named.
Here's the fun stuff. It's all about the parallels. We have our three boys forming the main triangle of main characters. We got Hotsun, Everett, Milano, and then each one kind of has their own people who fall under them. It's Sans Hotsun. He's not so much a parallel as he is the guy who evens everyone out. I'd say Milano and Everett are actually more of a parallel of each other.
They're the
Milano
big
has
parallels,
his crew,
yeah.
Everett has his crew.
Yeah, the dynamics there big. Hi,
Welcome,
Antag.
Yeah, definitely the parallels lay there. Oh, okay, so Milano and Everett have these parallels, but Hotsun is the one that the story is happening to, hence why he is the main character and is put on that level. Basically, any character that is a main character and falls into that role is going to be explored in depth because not only are they most important to the story and the most in depth as well, but also because they're the ones who are carrying the themes of the story that we wish to tell. That's one of the big things I find with secondary characters versus main characters.
We're happy to have you when you do come.
Sometimes what can happen is you do have side characters and they can go through these stories, they can go through these almost mini arcs. Like maybe they have one episode dedicated to them, but they're not going to have like 5+ episodes dedicated to them. So they might learn something along the way that's like, oh, that's a good lesson, that's a good moral. But for the main characters, it's usually more of what they're learning ties back into the reason the story exists in the first place.
Yeah.
Which honestly, or your samurai flamenco mention reminded me of that the most, because like you got some good side lessons on the side, but it's Masayoshi and Goto that are carrying the themes of the show. Their arcs specifically revolve around the themes of identity, what's my purpose, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so basically, I think that the big thing to come around is you have, especially on a lot of shows that have very large casts of characters. I'm thinking My Hero Academia. I'm thinking, Fairy Tail. Any Naruto even. You get like a lot of and because they progress through the story and these are such long, One Piece, such long running shows that they just go. It could get boring, and I say a lot of quotations here, doing the same thing with like the same characters and only exploring them. And a lot of the arcs in like shonen anime is like meeting somebody and basically learning their backstory and then like defeating them or assimilating them or whatever, right? And
it's very interesting you bring that up, and this is just a thought that popped into my head as you mentioned that.
Yeah.
So you mentioned all these shows, Naruto, Fairy Tail, I'm gonna throw Bleach into the mix as well.
Yep.
That had
I just never saw it.
Cast. One Piece especially. There are these massive casts, and you have this huge runtime. So of course you're gonna have like all these side characters. You might explore them more in depth than you would in any other story, just because there are so many episodes or chapters that you need to fill. And the reason
you
I find
have
this
the time to do
is
it
because what I'm seeing, you have the time to do it, but this is really interesting because now we're entering the era of we're not getting long form content. We have more short form content now, and with that, we have smaller casts. So we have like maybe, I would say, maybe 6 characters at the most. I'm trying to think of something I've seen recently. Kaiju number 8, I think, had maybe 6 characters. You had the 2 main characters, and then everyone else was a supporting character. Whereas like with Naruto, oh my god, you need multiple hands to count how many characters there are in that show.
that we get like backstory on, right? that we get like fairly in-depth knowledge of them. And I think that's where the biggest thing comes from, right? When you start getting massive groups of characters, honestly, no matter how much time you have to tell your story, because technically as a webtoon we have as much time as we want to tell our story. You know, we can make it as long or as short as we want it to, and so we can make sure that we fit everything in it. But while I am certainly in the boat of, but we need to pace ourselves in the sense of that, well, I love designing these characters and I love getting to
well, exactly, Enthused.
Yeah.
They keep it down to those core 3 in the present day, and then those core 4 in the past.
And they get to pull double duty by doing it that way, because it doesn't take any more time to learn about your current characters as it does to learn about the past characters, because it specifically is a parallel story of learning about them, you know, simultaneously, right? So even though there's, I guess the math would be 8 minus 1 would be 7 characters, right? Less than that. 6 characters to go through.
6?
Yeah, 6. That's how math works. 6
is
characters
indeed how math
to
works.
have. You're not having to do individual, everybody gets their moment, right, to learn about them. You're learning about the past characters through learning about the present characters. And so, you know, even time there is done even better, even more efficiently, I guess, right, to get a lot more in there than just a normal show might be able to.
And it's very effectively done. There it is. Sorry, I'm arting as I'm talking. Tis not easy, but I got a group shot to finish.
Are you recording?
Oh, I am. I very much am.
Oh, nice.
But the trick with bigger casts is you kind of have to know who to give priority to. Otherwise, you can run the risk of it being too cluttered. Or you could run the risk of it just not flowing as well as you would like, because there's so much to keep track of in terms of the characters.
Well, I would say, so Mars, I think the big thing is that, so basically a lot of this has been in my head a lot, because we are designing these new, you know, extra characters, these additional characters outside our main boys, right? We're really in like a big designing, you know, understanding of the characters phase. And I definitely feel like it's very easy to get carried away, right? It's very easy to be like, oh, I want to flesh out why this character is the way that they are, right? And they need a backstory. And I need to flesh out why this character is the way they are. But I think that while that can be a fun exercise to do, I feel like I specifically want to rein myself in personally for thinking about it too hard, because I don't want to need to know it, right? If that makes sense. The more that a character is fleshed out, even in us, the creator's head, the more I want to put into the thing. And then I feel like that's where you toe the line and could go either way of being lost potential versus properly vague, right?
Yeah. And that's kind of the balance you need to strike when deciding who's going to be a supporting character, who's going to be a secondary character, because there's different levels of exploration depending on the kind of character. I feel like with the supporting cast, like these new characters that we've been talking about, Perry and Saiga, they are important to Avrit's story. They're going to kind of accompany him on his journey. Now, they've been a presence in his life for the most part, and really, that's all we need from them. We just need strong personalities from the characters, and we need them to be interesting. But anything more than that would just kind of be, I think superfluous would be the word. It wouldn't be needed, because it wouldn't be adding anything to the story, and in my personal opinion, it would take away time that could be used to develop the other characters.
Exactly.
Oh, that's the balance you always got to strike when coming up with characters and deciding who's going to be playing what role. Like take Olus for example. He is the boatman who gave Hotsun his ship at a very unreasonable price because he's a human. So aside from another role he'll play later on, that's all
which
we
is
need
the
to know
only
about
reason
him,
he's
because
named.
What role did Olus serve? He introduced us to this society in the first entry, and he showed us where there are some prejudices on both sides, or some what's the word I'm looking for? God damn it, it's escaping me so bad.
I don't know.
Come back word. I don't know. I used the word was prejudice. The other was fudge.
Sorry.
It's gone. The word
Can't
is
help
gone.
with this one.
Crap. I know you can't help with this one. Trust me, it's gonna come back at the weirdest time. I'm gonna be talking, and I'm gonna be like, oh, I remember.
Yeah, such is life.
But the point is, he served a role in our story. He served that introduction to, this is the world we're in, this is the society we're in, and then that's further bolstered by what we learn through Hotsun. We start learning, oh, okay, there's more to this caller human thing than we originally thought. Like, there's a lot going on, because Ferrix is very off-put to society. All these pirates left because they didn't want to be part of society as it was. So it serves a purpose. I think that's the long and short of it.
Mm-hmm. And Olus
But
wouldn't
does he
be
need
named.
a whole backstory where we know his family, where we know like why he became a boatsman? Like, no, we don't need that.
Yeah. I think the big one is, so recently my music recommendations have been pretty fire every other week.
I gotta say, they've been amazing.
Figured it out. And basically a lot of songs recently that Mars and I have been playing on repeat and obsessed with had to do with this newer character, Perrin, or Perry. And so definitely
He's
it's
not
like
a platypus.
he's not a platypus, he's a humie, and which is a human. It's a humie. And he
They're
plays
not
a
called humies
very
in canon,
specific
don't worry.
role and sort of, you know, thing. But I definitely found myself after listening to these songs a bunch having little like moments of like, oh, this would be his backstory stuff. I was like, no, Ori, we don't need that. Stop thinking about that. Right? Well,
See,
it's fun.
It's very interesting that you were coming up with backstories, because listening to those songs, I was hearing like, oh, this is happening like as he's fighting in the moment.
Yeah.
Avrid is behind him, Saiga is like maybe 2 steps ahead of him, and he's going wild.
Yeah, the
And
most
I
of it
think the way
was.
I envision Perry is kind of like how musical theater interprets, you know, villains versus protagonists.
100%.
Like protagonists, they get more depth. They get the classic I want song when they get to talk about their desires, what they wish to happen, everything they could possibly dream of. Villains, however, get I am songs. I am evil. I am this. I am powerful. And the songs that we were finding matched Perry's vibe were very much sounding like I am songs.
Oh, yeah.
I am dangerous. Like that was just, that sealed the deal. But would we give Perry a quote unquote I want song where he sings about his personal desires? I couldn't see that.
No,
because that's just not the role he's serving in the story.
See, I'm more in the like,
Or does he need it?
so what I was doing when I was talking about envisioning Perry's backstory, I was specifically envisioning sort of the reasons he became who he is, but specifically with the light of I don't think this is gonna be really spoilers. We'll know this the second we meet him, but like that he's not sympathetic, right? That like, yeah, this is what happened and something happened to trigger him to be this way, but he's still not even reasonable for doing it, right? And so it was more just like using the backstory to further fuel.
Not a sympathetic one.
Exactly.
But it's interesting.
That's the secret, Pastry Puff.
In not defining that, it almost kind of leaves the question open, and I think this is more impactful.
Oh yeah.
The audience is left to interpret. Oh shit! How did he become like this?
Mm-hmm.
What pushed him to this edge where he's just like completely unredeemable?
And that is specifically why I'm sitting there, Ori, stop thinking.
I'm like, Ori, I need you to stop thinking about it. This isn't the direction.
Well, I can
yes.
I can think about it sometimes, but if it doesn't matter, it doesn't. It's basically at that point my own personal headcanon.
Well, I think there is merit in letting some things, especially with the side characters, because at the end of the day, they're not going to get as much development as their main character counterparts. That's just not the role they serve in the story. But what makes it interesting is when you find people in your audience who do latch onto those side characters. There's like something about them that draws them to them, and they're like, oh, we'll take over. We'll flesh this out for you. I think my favorite example of this, there was, and Ori, I wonder if you've seen it. There is a My Hero Academia Mineta spin-off that was made by a fan. Okay,
End me on
it's
Mineta.
kind of wild. Because basically, I thought it was interesting because it took a dive into Mineta's character as he got older when he realized, oh shit, I've been a dick. I need to shape up. But because he was a dick, he can't get work as a hero, and he's not being treated like a hero, and this eats at him. I was like, oh, wait, he tries to make amends, but people keep like harping on him for his past, like he can't escape it. It was an interesting direction. Now, even with like just that little amount, someone looked at that and said, huh, I could do something with that story, and did something they did. Do something they did.
Do something they did.
I think that's just my favorite example because Mineta is one of those characters you'd be like, why would you spend time on him?
Yeah, really.
But then I also feel like Perry, based on how we're going to portray him, kind of shares that why would we try to give him a backstory? Why would we try to explain this monster of a man? So I found it a very apt comparison.
Yeah. It definitely, but I think that the big difference is that
if
it's
you
not
guys
like
have any questions about writing main characters versus secondary characters, please place them in chat.
And I think
also, hi Oscar.
Yes, hello Oscar. I think the big thing is that then you have to balance, but you can't make your, less developed characters more intriguing than the main character, right? Because while it is fun,
done that.
No, I don't think we've done that.
You've done something wrong.
It's more like that's where I think the lost potential comes from. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think that's where it's like, oh God.
I can definitely think of examples where that's happened. Like, I adore Hunter x Hunter. But at the end of the day, Killua is way more interesting of a character than Gon.
Exactly.
And he has a way more interesting arc than Gon does.
And that's where you kind of have to watch the line.
His role as a main character.
And I think that's a big, that's where you have this like the difference between, wow, it'd be fun to explore this character, and God, how dare they not have explored, like, this is wasted, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm so upset.
Or even to the point of, why isn't this character the main character? Why are we following this guy?
There's a difference from,
like if someone's thinking that, it's like, oh dear.
It would be interesting to see how Mineta, if he grows, the consequences of his actions, right? This is an interesting thing to explore, versus like, oh God, I wish that, XYZ. There's so many characters in My Hero Academia, and I'm so not up to date. But like, I wish that Aizawa was the like we really didn't get enough Aizawa. Again, I haven't been in the fandom for a while, but
I wish Mirio were more explored in depth.
Yeah, and it's like there's a
I don't
difference.
know how much she's explored, to be
Yeah,
honest.
that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm like
Bad
hesitant to
comparison.
say literally anybody. But yeah, exactly. That would be the wasted potential argument of like, oh, this character ended up being more interesting and specifically not focused on because they were never meant to be focused on, but they were created in a way where it's like, I actually really, really care about this character, and the main character's kind of bland in comparison. I don't really care about their story. I want to know about X character's story. That is where
And then
you
that's
have
the
this
problem
sort of
when the audience isn't allowed
issue.
to spend time with the character they care about. They're forced to spend it with the main character they don't like.
Yeah. Or just
then you
find
just have a whole
boring
mess.
compared, right? Just find dull compared. And I think that is the main character might not be dull at all, but if they are dim in comparison to this other character, that's where it's like an issue. Polnareff versus
Exactly.
Jotaro. Kinda.
I will live and die on the hill that the side characters are more interesting than any of the Joes.
I'm sorry.
Except
Joseph.
No,
Joseph
except
wins
Joseph, because
actually
they
being
gave
main
him
character.
A fucking personality.
Joseph is main character in his arcs.
No, Joseph acts like a main character.
Joseph is good.
He has main character energy. Jotaro, he
Forgettable.
also has main character energy, but he also has a shtick. And it's like, okay, you're the punk. You're the punk of the group.
Yeah,
We
you're
also
definitely
have-
there more for like Kakyoin.
Yeah. Well, even and this is so interesting about like something like JoJo's Bizarre Adventures, because they never let you get like you go along the journey with these characters, right? So you do get attached to them, you do care for them, but you don't find out their backstory until something dire is happening. Usually they're about to die. And that's when you get the whole dump, like, this is how terrible their life was. This is what they were fighting for the whole time, because they want you to feel that gun punch of, oh, they've been through so much and now they're never gonna have like XYZ, which is a very interesting tactic. I personally, in my writing, do not like that. I personally don't like doing that because it feels like
It cheapens
too
it.
little, too late.
I find it always
cheapens it.
cheapens it.
Yeah.
Fairy Tail.
'Cause
I
it's
feel like a
if
lot
you
of
want this backstory, if you're holding out for it, and then it comes just as his character is about to die, what's the point of caring? Like, you've learned their backstory and now they're gone.
I
to
feel
never
like
show
this
up again.
comes from shonen anime like tropes a lot, because I find this really happens with the characters that they defeat, right? It's a big thing in Fairy Tail, and I know Fairy Tail the best, so it's a big thing in Fairy Tail of their
Guys,
fighting.
we're way more cultured than this. I swear, we have so many animes we've watched.
I'm talking specifically about like a shonen that has a trope to it. That's out of the list that you could list, Fairy Tail is the one I know the best.
Oh no, I
And-
hear ya. I hear ya.
Yeah. And so having it be very common that it's like, okay, we're fighting this enemy, and then it's like, oh, I'm your mother. And it's like, and I'm going to tell you about being your mother and how I came to be evil on the evil side and why, you never knew me. And then you win and I'm dead. And it's like, great. I don't care.
What was gained from that?
Like, I don't care. Like, what was gained? Cool, interesting backstory about how all the backstory stuff happened. But it's like, okay, we're literally fighting this enemy now and learning about the backstory as we're already fighting them. So the backstory is meaningless in the sense of like, it doesn't change the path of where the story is going. knowing about this, right? I think the closest it gets to maybe they learn a piece of information that actually allows them to fully beat the enemy that they're fighting, right? But it's not like, oh no, now I'm having a dilemma and I actually could maybe not end up fighting these people, right? Like there's a difference. But and then what's wild is that Fairy Tail does have things like that. Like, you know, very early on in Fairy Tail 100 Years Quest, they do have this sort of conundrum of like, we're going to defeat all these evil dragons, and then they meet the first dragon. They're like, but he's really nice, actually. I don't want to kill him. And they have this whole thing, and it's like, oh, you know, do we have to kill him? And they're like, defeat. They said defeat. They did, you know, they said like seal or whatever. They didn't say it had to be by death, you know. And they have this whole thing,
fine print,
which is very like that's good, right? Like, so we learn about the guy's backstory, and it literally actually means like now the main characters don't want to fight him because he's actually a good guy. That doesn't happen every
but that
time.
Actually has an impact on the plot.
Yeah, and I think that means it's like, okay, cool. I was interested in his backstory, but if it's like, no, I'm still going to fight you, we're still going to fight either way, you need to die, because if you don't die, like, literally the world will end, basically, is like 90% of the things, right? It's like, I don't care about your backstory. Spreading out backstory and less talking, more showing is generally better than exposition does. 100%. It does slow down the pacing a lot. 100%. We found that with Bad, right? We found that with Bad, is that exposition not only can be like homework, right? I feel it gets to a point where it's like, now this is homework that I have to absorb suddenly, rapidly.
Yep.
It just slows down the pacing of what's ever happening, right? You're in it, you're fighting, and then I get a whole episode of we're not fighting right now. I'm listening. I'm watching the flashback of your backstory.
We're stuck in one spot, and we're just listening to this backstory the whole time.
Yeah, and it's just like, okay.
That can be draining.
I wonder where we have experience from, but
yeah, I can't imagine. It's not like it happened twice.
But see, and that's a whole thing where it's like
3 times actually.
You know, you don't need. You just move around a little bit.
Well, that's a whole different topic.
That is a whole
another
different topic.
We can absolutely talk about exposition delivery,
but I think
for another Comic Corner.
But I think exactly what the Fairy Tail thing is happening, where a lot of times it's like, okay, we get this character's backstory and they're defeated and die, and literally knowing their backstory changes nothing, right? Kind of same with JoJo a lot of times, right? It's like they're gonna die, you know they're gonna die now because of the backstory shit.
I think Polnareff actually was the exception to the rule.
Yeah, he was the exception.
Spoilers for JoJo's. He did survive.
How dare he?
He did survive, whereas, in my opinion, more just deserving characters died.
Yep. Oh, many more deserving characters.
You never kill the dog. How dare you?
But back out of spoilers.
Yes.
What was I saying?
But these are the different purposes that characters can serve. So if you do have a secondary character who plays a similar role like the one Ori described, wherein their backstory actually enhances the plot or is important to the plot, you can absolutely do that. Trying to think of another example.
I can see if your backstory gives you the means to win, right?
The means to win, the means to progress.
But I feel like it has to be done.
It needs to serve a purpose.
But I also hear me out about this. If, say, the backstory is like, okay, the backstory is what you need in order to defeat the big bad, right? Whatever it is. However, I think that it's much more fulfilling and necessary to be an actual character's backstory if it's not just like, I'm telling you this and the ingredient is in this story, I'll tell you, and I'm just gonna tell you the ingredient partway through the story. Make sure you're listening to my rant. Versus like, no, they're telling their backstory and then it's through that, sort of like Edgeworth's logic, where it does happen with Bad, where he then puts the pieces together, right? Like where then the pieces are put together. It's not like, oh yes, I told you this one ingredient.
Okay. So I think what you're saying is that the backstory and exposition works better if it feels more natural, where it's
There
not just like
has
listen
to-
for this one key piece and then
Yeah.
that comes back in the
There
final.
has to be a reason for it to
The
be a
final battle.
backstory and not just giving you the secret passcode, right? Like there has to
Oh,
be a
100%.
reason that this is told in a backstory exposition-y way.
Because there's many ways to tell the quote unquote secret ingredient
Exactly.
in ways that aren't just backstory oriented. And yet a lot of media chooses to do it backstory oriented. Why is this? Well, they're trying to blend exposition and character plot in the same soup, as it were. Because
Ooh.
audiences want to learn things naturally. If I were to just come out and tell you, hey, by the way, use the diamond to kill the dragons, like that's not satisfying. But if I were to say, oh, 100 years ago, there was this one knight and in his sword was inlaid a diamond. No one knows why that was the only sword to strike the dragon down. That's a little bit more intriguing. It leaves room for theorizing. It's natural to the context of the world because it's a story. There's little tricks like that that can make exposition feel more natural. That's actually one of my favorite methods, is integrating it into the world building and making it inherent to the world, essentially. Because like everyone has this knowledge, but it takes the protagonist to figure out the true meaning
To actually
of it,
put the pieces together.
which is very Dungeons and Dragons-esque now that I think
It is
about
very
it.
Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, can you tell I've been influenced? I mean, even before I started playing with you guys, I was thinking about plot in that manner.
Oh,
so
yeah.
maybe I was always one of them.
I had a thought and then I
We've
forgot it.
gone completely off track. We've gone to exposition now, though I don't see this
No,
as a bad thing.
because it still has to do with backstories, and that's what I wanted to come back to, was that with the fairy tale thing, I feel like a lot of times it is just, we made this cool character, and we want this character to be tied to, you know, a main character, right, in some way, but we can't just say that. I want to think of a cool reason why it matters. You know, what now now if you make this cool connection, it's like, yeah, I do want to know why. I do want to know why. Spoilers for Fairy Tale final season, but I do want to know why Erza's mother is suddenly here around, comes back, and is fighting on the bad guy side. Yeah, I do want to know why. And honestly, her backstory is kind of interesting. But literally, we meet her in an episode, and like maybe 2 episodes later, we kill her. Like, it's not... She
It's
doesn't
very
stick
one
around
and
long
done.
enough for it to be...
You kind of have that moment
worth it.
of, if you're not going to stick around, why should we care?
But I also totally get the like of like, yes, if you're literally like, hi, Erza, I'm your mother, it's like, yeah, fuck yeah, I want to know. You know, like, I do. You like that tie-in is so intriguing that I do want an answer. But then it's like, okay, but we're doing this, and now we only have like 80 episodes, you know, 80. We only have 10 episodes left, and we need to finish
Jesus.
all of this stuff. No, it wasn't that many. It was like, we have 24 episodes, and we have all of this other shit to wrap up. Like, we can't spend a long time, you know, but it's like, honestly, should have been a whole arc, this woman, you know, because like, yeah, that matters.
It sounds like it would have
And so
benefited
it just
from
definitely feels like it feels like a mid thought, I guess. I wouldn't say an afterthought, but it feels like okay, I want to have a fight, and I want Erza to be, you know, I want this character, we'll go off the spoilers, but it's like, I want to have a fight, and I want this character to have like a moral quandary about who they're fighting, right? What's the way to do that? Well, they've been an orphan their whole life. Let's find their parent. It turns out they're fighting their parent, and their parent knows it's their child, but the child doesn't immediately know. And then it's like, oh, child, I'm your parent. Hello, Nicole. Now we have a moral quandary.
I'm your father.
Yeah, right? Now we have a moral quandary there. And that is, see, that's actually a really good example, though, Mars, is the Darth Vader thing of, Luke, I'm your father, I killed Anakin, you know, right? Like how did you, you told me Darth Vader killed my father, and it's like, I am your father, right? And so it's like, now that's intriguing. they don't deal with that in the original trilogy, right? They have to go back and give you a whole second trilogy because Darth Vader was so cool, right? And that one like tie-in, the fact that he is Luke's father, Anakin, is like a wild thing. And it's like, damn, the people want to know, right? The people want to know.
It's also seeing like how did he become Darth Vader?
Well,
'Cause
exactly.
talking about like, because then you have Obi-Wan's whole thing where he's like, so what I told you was true from a certain point of view, and Luke's staying there like, bullshit, you fucking lied to me.
Mhm. And
But
so
it was intriguing enough as a concept that people did want to see it explored. How did
exactly.
he change so drastically? So sometimes you can have characters that take on a life of their own in a whole nother property. I mean, it's still Star Wars, but it was separate from the original
But
trilogy.
I think
Like,
that
they
is
did
a
not
very
explore his backstory. It was just kept super vague in the original trilogy.
and I think that's done in a good way, in the sense of where it's like, I don't feel like Darth Vader is wasted potential if I never learned his backstory because of what happens in the original trilogy, right? In the main trilogy. But he is intriguing
that's
enough
not what matters
to even warrant. Yeah.
It doesn't make a difference to the story how he became Darth Vader in there.
Exactly.
What matters is that he became good again by protecting his son. So it shows there was still good in him. That was Luke's moral dilemma, and it became the audience's dilemma.
This is an interesting thing, Mars. So I find that a lot of times when a lot of specifically villains' backstories are explored that weren't meant to have their backstories explored, right? You see it with, like, we had Maleficent, you know, like the Maleficent movie, we had the Cruella de Vil movie, right? We have all of these villain movies where we learn about them more, and it makes, the intent is definitely there to make you sympathetic. Right.
Yes.
The intent is definitely there to make you sympathetic. And I think what is very interesting.
My favorite one is Cruella. My mother was killed by Dalmatians.
Yeah. Like, obviously, this is like
came up with that in the writing room. My God.
This is like we're giving backstory, and the only way to give backstory is to show that they're sympathetic in some way. They have a real reason to do this. And I think what's very interesting, and now I haven't honestly seen the prequel series in a long time, but if I remember correctly, Anakin is not painted in a good light in any way during his descent into madness, right? Like, no. He's never painted.
He's definitely treated as a tragic character that
but
was
he's
just
not sympathetic.
Going to come out of this good no matter what. I'd say the only moment you truly feel sympathy for him, there are 2 points where you could feel sympathy for him, is when his mother dies and he feels remorseful over killing, maybe not remorseful, he's definitely like shaken by killing all of the sand people, because that's what he does. His mother dies and he lashes out, so he kills her, kidnappers.
Jesus.
Just slaughters like
the women and the children
village.
Too.
And not just the men, but the women and the children. God, it's so hokey sometimes.
Yeah.
But, okay.
Iconic line.
I think the prequels get too much hate. Personally, I understand the writing isn't great. I'm still along for the ride, because at the end of the day, it is a 3-part tragedy about Darth Vader's downfall.
But I don't find that overall it paints Anakin in like a now Darth Vader should be sympathetic. Right? He does that. He comes back from the Sand People, and it's painted as like, dude, you fucked up. Like, this is a bad thing. Like, this is like, wow. This is like step 1 of like, yeah, he's fucking gone. You know, like this is not treated as like a justified thing. Like, specifically the way they talk about like the women and the children too, right? Is literally to be like, no. He's off the deep end, guys. Like, he's off the deep end. And I think the only other moment
portray him as like kind of losing it as well, which feeds into that.
And the only other possible moment I think that you could feel sympathetic for him in any way is when he wakes up at Darth Vader and he's like, what about Padme? And they're like, you killed her. And he's like, no! you know that, which is very hokey as well. But
How could I not?
but at least that is supposed to be like a, you know, like a moment of, because he loved her, he did, you know, like that is
I
the
gotta share this real quick. 'Cause
Yeah.
I love an interpretation that someone came up with for that scene. Kind of justifies the hokey acting
Oh,
in
yeah?
a sense. Not sure if it was the actual intention, but I love the interpretation. Is that he's so filled with pain in that moment, but he has a voice processor. Like it's just a machine producing his voice, and a machine cannot capture the level of pain that he is projecting in that moment. So that's why you get the no, because that's all the machine could manage.
I think that's a lovely
make any
headcanon.
sense?
I don't think that's
Kinda.
what they
Is
were
it what
going
they
for.
thought they were doing? I doubt it, but I love it anyway.
Again, great headcanon, but yeah, sadly, I don't think that was the intention.
Oh, definitely not.
But
But
I think
enjoy
that
it.
in nowadays, anytime you learn about the villain's backstory, it's meant to be in a
It takes
sympathetic
away
way.
from the villain too.
And it's like, because, okay, spoilers for Owl House, but remind me Belos's backstory.
He was not sympathetic.
He wasn't sympathetic, right?
He was always going after witches.
Yeah, he was a witch hunter from the
determined to make a
beginning.
name for himself. He loathed
And
his
then
brother
his
for
brother-
falling in love with a witch.
Yeah, his brother
a
fell in
witch
love with the
a
witch.
witch.
Yeah, that's what I thought happened. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Bellows
Good.
was never portrayed as sympathetic.
Which I think
He
is
was
very
a monster
good.
through and through. Even when Luce meets him in the past, he's a monster. He tricks her.
And learning about his backstory was never meant to make him sympathetic. It was meant to give Luce a moral quandary, literally.
Yeah.
We only met him backstory because it was specifically to give Luce this, oh fuck, like it's my fault, right? Like that whole
Yeah.
thing. And so I think that's very interesting.
Well, it also set the timeline in motion too, because now he has glyphs in the past, so that's how he
But
gets
now,
the power.
spoilers for Amphibia, if I remember correctly, King Andreas did have a sympathetic
He
backstory.
Does get a sympathetic
Yeah.
backstory. He was betrayed by his friends,
Or so he
who stole
thought.
the box. So he thought.
Yeah. He thought that,
That one-
yeah.
But there's the difference. That was meant to be a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
So that's seen more as a tragedy.
It
where It's like,
is.
oh, if only they could have talked. If only they could have understood each other before
Mhm.
Leaf had to leave.
Had
They could have
communication.
solved this. Whereas with Bellows, he was never going to listen to his brother. He was never
No.
going to hear him out. He was never going to be okay with magic. He wanted control. He wanted power. He was like that from the start.
Mm-hmm.
So, similar shows with two villains, but very different
Treated
intentions.
very different.
Meanwhile, what was the name of the thing that possessed Marcy? The core? I think it was
Yeah,
the
the core. Yeah.
That thing, we don't even get a backstory for that thing. We just know it's bad news.
We know a marginal amount of it, yeah. A tiny little amount. About how it's basically like
So-
it's all of Andreas's ancestors' consciousnesses. That's what we know about it.
I believe that's right.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. You have all these different characters and all these different levels of backstory, plot, impact that they could have. Like someone like Bellows and Andreas had a major impact on the plot. They were main villains. Meanwhile, someone like the core, like, yeah, they were the big bad, but they were kind of that unknown, mysterious final boss.
But I do find that I would say that Bellos's treatment of being a villain is on the rare side. I find most times you get a villain's backstory of any sort, and it is to give some sort of like, I guess,
Sympathetic, light.
like an understand, like, oh, it's understandable that like they became this way.
It would be
right?
the equivalent of giving Slade a sympathetic backstory.
Right? Oh, that's a good one. Spoilers for Teen Titans, I guess. But Slade never gets a backstory.
bad line.
Slade never
There we
has
go.
a backstory. In the original animated Teen Titans series.
In the good one.
In the good one, in the original, there's no backstory to it.
Sorry, I'm still petty as shit.
You know what else? Another one. We don't get his backstory ever. We don't need to. It's not meant to. He's meant to be a bad guy. We still, though. This is what's wild. Okay, this is what I think really good
Okay, what
on Teen
epiphany
Titans.
did you hit?
What?
What epiphany
Oh,
did you have?
is that we don't get any backstory about Slade, yet we still have the "you're not so different, you and I, Robin" moment. Isn't that fucking fantastic? We don't know anything about Slade. We know very
impressive.
little about Slade. We know Slade's a villain, and he gets and we have, after this whole spiral of Robin towing the gray area of the line, right? We get this "we're not so different, you and I, Robin," and it hits really hard, but we have no Slade backstory. Nothing. That's crazy,
And yet we
right?
still have enough of a character
Yeah,
to make that
that's what it
connection and
is.
see how they're similar.
Ooh, okay. Off of spoilers, Mars, do you
Yes.
think that sometimes, or fairly frequently, backstory is used as a crutch for, I'm sort of like, I don't want to say necessarily bad, but like lazy character writing? You see what I'm getting
think
at?
of an example. I do see what you're getting at because I know I've seen something where
mean-
backstory made something
I feel like
weaker.
no,
And I
so
do
no, I'm
feel
not
like
saying that it
that's
makes it
something good.
weaker. No. See, I'm not saying it
Okay.
makes it weaker. I'm saying that the character as a character is rather bland,
Mm-hmm.
not memorable. So they try to make up for that with an interesting backstory because the writer is better at writing backstories than they are at writing a character, right? Does that make sense? So I think that happens a lot in like the shonen animes, right? Where it's like, this character's characterization, we barely get to know them, but here's their backstory, right? So now you obviously know them, this sort of thing. Yeah, Kakyoin, right?
I know they definitely exist. Kakyoin, yeah, I could see that.
Yep, exactly. Enthused.
Probably the classic JoJo's backstories. See, I think that's why I like part 5 of JoJo so much, because not only did we get their backstories, but they were interesting characters and they all had very defined personalities. I think that's why I enjoyed part 5 so much. It felt like they were characters, like they were fully realized.
And I think that's
But-
what's very. See, this is very interesting.
But I think that is easy to use because we've also
Yeah.
talked about backstory being used to emotionally manipulate their audience. Now, I know that sounds bad on paper. Technically, any kind of writing done intentionally is emotionally manipulating your audience because you want your audience to feel something when they're reading or looking at your work. It's all emotional manipulation.
Emotional manipulation, good in writing, bad in practice.
Exactly. Don't try it home.
I
There's
need
been
that to be like a
PSA.
sticker, Jesus.
Can we get that on a t-shirt, please?
Good in
I
writing,
do
bad in
I
practice.
do genuinely mean that because
No,
you're
it's
asking
true.
your audience to feel something when they look or read your work. It is
Yeah.
all emotional
Without
manipulation.
anything actually
I
happening.
feel like that term comes with bad connotations because
I'm
people
curious
look
what
at
the
that
actual
and go,
definition is.
"Oh, that's a symptom of poor writing." Like if they have to emotionally manipulate me into feeling something, they didn't do this character well, they didn't do this plot line well. Like they're toying with my emotions and I feel nothing. Like yes, that is bad writing.
Yeah.
In
And so
terms
that's what I think
of
is very
using a
interesting.
backstory to make a character interesting. It's definitely been done before.
I think that's the crutch. I think that's the main reason when it's like,
I
oh
know
God,
I've seen an
learning this
example of it.
backstory.
It's just escaping me.
It happens in a
Kakyoin, yes, that was a good one, Enthuse. That
it
was
happens
good
a lot
one.
in like classic tropey shonen animes, right? Where it is very much, it's like we're
Definitely.
throwing this character out because we literally don't have enough time for you to feel something about this character. So here's their sob story backstory. Right now you feel something because it's like, oh, I could relate to the the story, right, but not necessarily the actual character. And I think that's
and guys, this is why, and Mason, if you're in chat, I know you were asking a little bit about this earlier today. So what you typically see is you get to spend a little time with the characters first, and then you get to learn their backstory. Not only does it make sense as human beings, we don't come out on day one, hi, nice to meet you,
unless that's your specific characterization, because oversharing is a character flaw.
Oversharing is definitely a character flaw, and it can't happen. But unless that's the purpose, that's not typically what people do. We feel out the waters first. We put our best foot forward. We give people our best selves. And then when we've spent a couple days around them, then the cracks start to show and we act a little crazy.
And I think that's what's very interesting.
We get comfortable. That's why backstories typically come after we've gotten to know the character, because not only does that make sense as a person, as a character, but it also gives the audience time to connect and be like, do I like you? Do I want to know more about you?
Exactly.
You intrigue me. I think I want to know more. Or you did something really shitty. Why did you do that? Like, guys, it's the classic line. You know how you're reading about a character or watching a character in your show and you just go, who hurt you? It's that. It's literally that.
And what I think is really specific that you sort of, got to there is the fact that, and that's exactly how you make this what characters matter, right? The characterization matters. I should recognize that character as a person, right? And this was very, in Samurai Flamenco, I wouldn't call this spoilers, so I'm not going to put up the spoiler tag. We meet 4 new characters. And we have overall in the grand scheme of the show
to the game. It's around the team numbers.
Yeah, it's like halfway through. And it literally is halfway through. And we get, in the grand scheme of things, very little time with these characters. And well, me personally, I'm not sitting here like, oh, I need to know their backstory and how we got to here. I can definitely see someone being like, what's their backstory? I'm curious. But they all feel like their own person, and differences. Are they a little tropey? Yeah, they are. And that plays into a whole thing.
We literally called one black-haired Tanjiro and not Keith.
Sure. I'll put the spoilers up. Pastry Puff.
Oh, we've been requested? Okay.
Spoilers for Flamenco by the tag. All right. And so it is like, are their personalities a little tropey? Yeah, but again, that plays into the whole thing. But the point is that it doesn't, they're still characters. I can understand what they're thinking without having to know
like his mentor,
why they're thinking
his family.
That.
One is super smart. Like, that's enough.
Yeah.
You got enough to work with there that they're identifiable.
We're just talking about characters and what characters matter and when you should make backstories, basically, or not. And I think that's really the crux of it, Mars, right? I think that's really the crux is you can tell what they're thinking, right? Because that's what you need to have, because what makes a character real or, really feeling anything for the character is understanding that felt in character, right? That action they took felt in character. And if your character is so bland that they could literally do anything and you would not feel anything, then that's a thing. But if it's like, okay, no, I expect this character
it could also go the other way
to feel this way.
Like, you should have lines that only your character can say. Like, think about how Aster talks. He's
we're out of the Menko.
Not one note, but he's very curt. He's very short with his answers. He's very to the point. You can't imagine Milano talking that way. That's specifically Aster only.
But see, it does not matter their backstories to get to that point, right? Milano and
Exactly.
Sinnit and Ferrix and Aster and Hotun all have very distinct, recognizable personalities as a character. You can make assumptions of how they're going to act when a certain situation arises. You can make assumptions, you can be surprised when they don't act within that level of characterization, when they either grow or they change or something else is up making them act out of character, right? And
We know what's up.
it's like while it is like we are gonna have backstory information, they do have backstory information and all this sort of stuff. It isn't
They are
integral,
interesting characters on their
first.
own,
Yeah.
without the
which
backstory.
makes you want
And
to
I
know
think
the
that's
backstory.
important. You have to have interesting characters first before you can have backstory.
And now it's a double-edged
'Cause
sword
if your
when
character is
you're
only
the creator,
interesting
though.
because of their backstory,
Mhm.
that can be an issue.
But it's a double-edged sword when you're the creator, because making the backstory influences how the character acts, right? It's cyclical, right? It's
Absolutely.
circular.
No, your character should be acting the way they are because of their backstory.
Exactly. But just like you can be endeared to people in real life without knowing their story, you should be endeared to the characters first, then wanting to know how we ended up at here. I think that's very
100%.
the showing, not telling thing. And so that's why I think that you can get away without that lost potential. See, that's it. Every time I think of a character that I'm like, lost potential, it's like their backstory's really cool and we did nothing with it.
Well, I'm very curious. Who's your lost potential character?
I feel it's a lot of fairy tale villains. I will say. I feel it's a lot of fairy tale, because a lot of it's very tropey, right? It's very in the, they fight a villain, and anytime it's like a major villain, I say in quotation, right? It's like we learn why they're a villain, or we learn sort of stuff. And now I will say there's a few characters that manage to stick around and have personality, and I do really like one of them a lot. He's really great, and he comes back continuously, and I'm very, very happy about that. But just the sheer amount of characters, it's like we could have had that, we could have had that. And it is just like Mina from My Hero, I can see that as well, right? You learn, and I think it really does happen a lot in very large character casts,
Absolutely.
but you see what we were talking about in Dungeon Meshi. You don't learn,
especially how stories
a lot of
grow
character
and change
backstories.
as the creator figures out what they want to do.
Yeah. And you don't learn a lot of character backstories, and the level of character backstory that you learn varies even throughout the main cast. How in depth you get with it, but you're still
Absolutely.
so enamored by every single named character that has like any significance in the story. There's obviously side characters that you don't really talk about, but like so many of them, they all feel, I guess, real, right? They all feel like people. They all feel like they have
If your
that
characters
backstory.
do not feel like people, you've done something wrong.
Oh, okay, Mason.
Oops, I missed that part. Let's go. Boop. Okay. Sorry, guys. Still arting while talking.
Indeed. Momo, I'm so like not in the My Hero space anymore, Mason, so I honestly have no idea who gets more fleshed out and who doesn't and what happens. So I'll take your word for it. I know that
I just know that eventually Mirio became like Deku's counterpart, and he had like his Dream 3 team.
Oh
going
yeah, I
on.
know about that. That's a
That
whole
was
thing.
kind of the
Honestly,
parallel.
we stand them. They're great. But
Was it Mirio and Tamaki?
okay, good. Just making sure, pastry puff. just double checking.
We always check, but this is why we have the sign.
Yeah, the sign. And Momo's great. I liked her from what I had seen of her, and her quirk is very interesting, you know, with how she has to know all of the chemicals and stuff. That's kind of wild. I will say that's what My Hero had really going for it a lot, is the idea that it's like, yeah, you get these superhero quirks, but like you gotta like practice though. They're a cool power, but you're not just like good at it.
Gifted. You gotta actually
it's like, yeah,
work for it.
which I think was a very cool take on a lot of superhero things. But
It was
yeah,
a cool take, and I also liked how unique the quirks were.
oh yeah, and how they work.
And that was pretty fun. Yeah.
Well, and that was so fun about My Hero was them then figuring out how to make their quirk like a hero quirk, right? Like work for fighting crime.
Well, that's
and
why
shit.
people loved making OCs of
Yeah.
their own My Hero characters, because the theme and idea
Yes.
was so strong. People were like, I can latch onto this. Something very similar actually happened with Spider-Verse. Like when that came out, everyone
Mhm.
started making their spider stones, because you have this idea of there are multiverses full of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Why can't my creation be one of them? It was
Yeah.
just a
so make
very
your collars,
easy
guys.
insert. Yes, make your collars. Or he just told you all to make furries.
They're not. Are they furries? We've had this conversation.
They're not. The guys,
Are
the
they?
collar tag officially exists
On Tumblr.
On Tumblr now. It officially exists on Tumblr.
Go post collars on Tumblr. Well, actually,
Yes.
what is this?
We're
Well,
ma-
actually,
We're
you've made
making
a
it
collar,
thing.
or are they furries? Again, I really don't personally care either way what they're labeled. I wish someone could just tell me.
Ooh, that's a cool one, Mason.
Nice, Mason. It's like
think the
our
costume
bee
would look
spider
very
in
fly.
Outcast.
Mina. Oh, Mina from AOT. So Mina from AOT is interesting because her role in the story was basically
I'm sorry.
sacrificial pawn.
PCM is talking about
Unfortunately,
determinants.
she. Ooh. PCM, what did we tell you? We told you they were good.
Yeah,
we
good
told you
stuff.
they were
Yeah,
good.
stuff.
They're good
We love stuff.
leggies.
We love them leggies.
We love them leggies. Okay, it took me an hour and a half to color Sinnit. Let's move on to Moano. God damn. I don't
Oh,
know if I'm getting this group
but
shot tonight
Pastry
done.
Puff.
Wait, what?
So,
I don't know if I'm getting this group shot done tonight.
oh goodness.
Tonight done.
Pastry
and
Puff.
me.
I wanted to say, because it looks like since you cared about the Samamenko talk, that you're interested in Samurai Flamenco. We will say it's definitely an odd one, and we plan to talk more about sort of another thing we quote unquote, I guess, learned next week. Which is we really liked it, Pastry Puff. We literally just finished it yesterday.
Roller coaster, I
But yes,
call it.
yeah. So it's
'Cause
an
we were not allowed
emotional
to
roller
sleep.
coaster that
We were
can
not allowed to
be
sleep at all.
misinterpreted as emotional whiplash, as tonal whiplash.
It's not emotional.
It's not
whiplash.
tonal whiplash, but it can be and has been misinterpreted as such. I would be very curious, Pastry Puff, your ideas on it, because you are so like laser focused on the stuff that happens when you watch a
And
show.
theory-oriented
And theory
as
oriented.
well.
I'd be very curious because Mars and I were sitting there like, oh my god, like, is this gonna happen? Like, what's gonna happen?
Oh,
Like,
I
oh,
was
ah.
theory crafted.
There was so much
I actually
theorizing.
hit some nails on the head. I was really impressed with myself.
Okay. I think you'll be good then, Pastry Puff. If you're a fan of Centaur World, I think you've passed to
you'll be
accept
fine.
Samamenko.
You're fine.
But yeah. Honestly, that's
Samamenko
a
is very
good
fun,
litmus
very
test. I'm gonna have
enjoyable.
to use that, Pastry Puff. Did you like Centaur? Yes or no?
If you did, you're cleared
Because
to
if you
watch
did,
these shows.
we can understand each other. If you didn't, you're missing the point.
That's so fucking accurate. God damn.
It's so good. It's so good because it is a show that like it's divisive, right? Which Centaur World definitely was, right? You know, it's divisive when you look at like ratings and stuff for it. Samurai Flamenco.
Oh yeah.
And it's a ride. Don't get me wrong. But Mars and I had an amazing time. And like I said, it spurns
Oh,
this.
such a blast.
It created this talk today. It creates the talk next week, which is emotional roller coaster versus tonal whiplash. And so it's like, there's a lot to talk about with it. So definitely when you get around to it, I know your list is long, Pastry Puff, and I don't want to try and keep shoving our stuff up the list.
Finish Moriarty first.
Well, that's a given. But
That's priority. You're
definitely
getting
when
to the
you
good
get around
stuff.
to it. No, of course not, Mason. Of course not, Mason.
You're not being annoying, Mason.
Look at this preening boy. He's preening. Look at him.
I mean, Mina is very adorable. I wholeheartedly agree with that.
No worries, PCM.
But sadly, the author decided to sacrifice her to make Eren angry.
See, that's
He
the
sacrificed
other
a lot
thing.
of people. Goddamn, rewatching Attack on Titan. I know I've talked about this before, but that goddamn scene where Thomas gets eaten. Some animator was way too proud of that scene because they play it multiple times in flashbacks and stuff. I'm like, how many times do I need to watch this?
You need to know. You need to see it again and again.
No, though. I don't
No.
need to see it again.
No, but do you know, Mars? But do you know? Do you see
I'm
all of
pretty-
that?
I'm pretty sure I saw. No, guys, when I first watched that scene, I was in high school, and like watching
God, I feel
that
so
scene,
old.
like I felt such dread in my own stomach. I was like, wow, that was a hard scene to get through. Oof, ouch. So rewatching it this time with my friend, I was like, I have not seen this scene in 13 years. So I did purposefully look away from the screen when I knew it was coming up. And then I forgot there was a flashback to it.
Again.
So I watched that blood on the screen. I was like, well,
Soiled it. Yeah, PCM.
but those
There's
were
a
the prime
reason.
examples of secondary characters. Like
Yeah.
their purpose in the story to be sacrifices, basically, to get Eren angry, to piss him off, to fuel his drive to kill the Titans. You know, you didn't get to super know them, but in the brief interaction where they're rallying together saying, yeah, we can do this, and Eren's being the leader you know he can be, and you're feeling that adrenaline, you're like, oh yeah, maybe they can do it. And this was back when like AOT was subverting every expectation that we'd come to expect with anime. We thought, oh, this is the moment they take it back, and then spoilers for a show that ended 4 years ago, I think.
Hey,
And started back in
Mako came out in
2010.
2014, so you know.
Okay, but that one's more hidden, so I don't expect a lot of people watched it. That one's hidden gem material. AOT is mainstream. But what the hell was I talking about? Yeah, so the
Spoilers.
expectation is Eren's going to get revenge. It's gonna be great. And what ends up happening? His entire team dies and he himself ends up getting eaten alive. So it subverted the expectations, but it also set like the precedent for these characters. Like, oh, they're rallying together. You feel the camaraderie. It's very brief, which I find very fascinating. Like they create this sense of camaraderie in 5 minutes of animation. It's really impressive. But between the dialogue and the way they talk to each other, because like when you think back to the story, they've been in basically military school for the last couple years, learning how to defeat the Titans. And they tell Eren, like, we were all roused by your speech. Like, we were going to be safe behind the wall. We were thinking of joining the military police, but no, we've decided to follow you. So it even adds to this tragedy of, oh my God, if they didn't listen to Eren, they would still be alive. So now it's like a little extra guilt, a little extra like, oof, gut punch. They serve their purpose as secondary characters very well. But we don't get any backstory about them. We don't know what Thomas's life was before he joined. We don't really get a lot of discussion of what Mina was like before she joined. But we still get the sense like they're good comrades and they're good friends. And that's kind of all you need for that scene to be successful.
I'm unspoilering. Look at this boy.
Okay, you can unspoiler. He's so proud.
He's very
I
proud.
always forget how long Hotzen's neck is.
Yes.
He's got a long neck.
He's got a long
I
neck.
forget because he's hunched and scrunched most of the
He's
time.
concerned a lot, yeah.
Hunched
When
and
his shoulders
scrunched.
aren't brought up to his ears and his head is down in his book.
What a
Yeah, he has a
difference.
neck. It's there. Look at it. He has a neck.
Look at that. Our boy has a neck. Wild discoveries are being made tonight, folks. Milano, you need to stop fighting me, please.
Yeah, you're gonna finish, Mars?
I don't know if it's happening tonight. Might be
Oh.
Thursday.
I need it. I need it.
I know you do. It's coming. It's coming. I'm gonna see how much I can get done tonight.
At this rate, I'm gonna be behind but ahead of you.
Yay?
Yes, please, Pastry Puff. Wrapping back to giving watchers info on characters. MTP. I'm blanking on what MTP is.
Moriarty the Patriot.
There you go. Thank you. Unless you're
Oh my God.
acquainted with the main three, then introduce more. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Mason, I was in high school when I started Attack on Titan, and then I actually bailed because I knew there was
Yes,
a
Pastry Puff.
scene coming up or an arc coming up where Squad Levi, you watched it. I know you know what happens. And I knew that was going to happen because I had seen spoilers, and I was like, I'm ready to see that be animated because the first attack was so friggin' intense. I think okay, so I started that in sophomore year. I didn't return
Yeah,
until maybe
I
halfway
think that's the
through
way to
senior
do it,
year.
Pastry Puff.
And then I watched it with a buddy, and it was so funny. I told them like, "Oh, I've been avoiding this because I'm so scared to see Squad Levi." And we watched it, and they tell me, "Well, you've seen Squad Levi." I'm just like, "Yeah, I have." That was a scene. That was definitely a scene.
The more Mars talks about Attack on Titan, the more I feel justified in the fact
Ori,
that
no.
I never watched it.
No, Ori, it's not your cup of tea.
Everyone kept trying to
It's
get. They're
not.
like, Ori, you gotta watch this. It's like the main, it's like main anime, and it's like ugh, I don't like the gore,
No.
guys. I'm a little afraid,
Ori,
and I'm a little afraid
there
of the
is
no plot
gore,
armor.
There is viscera. The plot armor. Okay, the plot armor we thought didn't exist,
Well, yeah,
but by season 2, plot
realize
armor
it did.
definitely exists.
Uh-huh.
Because
remember
because
when it,
Aoki
like, was first
one
coming
of
out.
the first couple to be the anime that did the fake out character death, the fake out main character death. So everyone was like shook by that. They were like, it's anime Game of Thrones. No one is safe. But then it becomes like Game of Thrones where you realize, okay, clearly some people are safe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it wouldn't hurt you in that regard.
No,
I just don't
it
think
honestly
it's
doesn't
your
seem
cup
like
of
my
tea.
kind of show in really any of the ways, if I'm being
No.
honest.
I don't think you'd like the message very much. I don't think
No.
you'd like the conclusion very much.
Yeah. It's
I
really
think
not
it's
an
gonna
Ori
end very
thing.
Devilman Crybaby for you.
Yeah,
So.
and Devilman Crybaby, only reason I watched it is because I didn't know.
The reason I watched Devilman Crybaby was because everyone was talking about it, and it was like the winter anime. I was on winter break, I was home from college, and I was like, I want to watch something, and I want to see what everyone's talking about because I want to see all the cool art. I want to be part of the fandom, and I ended up curled up under the covers, just not even crying. Just
No,
numb.
just numb. Yeah. Just because it hits real fast, real hard.
PC, okay, Ori, put spoilers back up real
Okay.
quick because I gotta talk about
Spoilers
the
are
ending
up.
of Attack on Titan. I'm not gonna go super into it because, to be perfectly honest, I only read the manga ending. I did not watch season 4 of Attack on Titan. I saw a couple episodes of season 4 and then I just stopped because I was realizing how much of this hinged on you caring about Eren and Mikasa as a relationship, and I really don't. And watching season 1, yeah, I still don't. I still prefer them as a platonic family bond than I do a romantic one. And season 1 is just reminding me of that. Even the friend I'm watching with is like, so are Eren and Mikasa a thing? Because they're kind of setting stuff up. And even as far back as season 1, I'm like, yeah, they're setting stuff up. I
So
just didn't know
PCMS
back then.
is the manga ending different than the anime ending?
I think they did make it different. Again, PCM, I didn't watch the anime ending. I think they come to roughly the same conclusion. They just changed one element to my recollection. Oh, it's the other way around. Okay. Hey, that's fair. I do like the message of Attack on Titan, that war doesn't benefit anyone. Like, this was not going to be your, yeah, we fight the bad guys and we turn out victorious. Like, no, everyone was suffering. Everyone was being hurt by this ongoing war. And I did like the message. I thought that was very poignant. I thought using the Titans as a metaphor for the oppression that, what were they called? There was a specific, the people who they basically turned into Titans as punishment. Like, they were being persecuted. It was basically an outcast, but with Titans. Except taken to the upteenth degree.
Yeah, way further.
I did enjoy the
I'll have to look
message
PCM.
because I thought it was very poignant and it was different from what I've seen before. There are so many anime out there that are a dime a dozen, like, yeah, we can beat the bad guy. Yeah, we can win the war. And that's a feel-good message. I am all for that. But it's interesting to see a more realistic take, a different approach. So I didn't have a problem with the message they were trying to imply. It was just more so, after a while, the vibe just wasn't hitting like it used to. And it's really interesting going back to season 1 because I am hella vibing with the show. Like, even knowing where it's going, I'm like, I am here for this. Like, I'm getting sucked into the animation. I'm getting sucked into the fantastic OST that just heightens every single moment. God damn it, Hiroyuki Sawano, take all my goddamn money. Seriously, this guy is a genius. I'm getting sucked into the voice acting. Like, I'm watching the dub and I'm like getting drawn into every single scene. So it's going to be interesting when my friend and I do reach season 4, if I'm going to have the same reaction as I did when it first came out, or if I'm going to be like, okay, maybe this is more, like, maybe I have a more open mind now. Because that's also the thing too. Sometimes it's about finding anime or finding any show, any piece of media really, at the right moment. Like, sometimes it just clicks for you in one moment and doesn't in another. What's a show where I did that recently? I know there was a show where there was, no, that show, yes. Okay, so there is a show called The Royal Tutor. And it's very fun. It's very goofy. It's basically Castle Slice of Life meets school drama, I guess. It's really fun. It's really goofy. I started that show back in college because I was just looking for something to watch that day. And I tried maybe the first 3 episodes, and I just felt very bored. Like, I was just like, okay, nothing's happening. This is a little too goofy. Like, I'm not that into this. Now, what was I watching a lot of at the time? Well, I was watching Hunter x Hunter. I was watching Dimension W. I was watching Kekkai Sensen. All very battle action oriented shows. So when I tried something that was a little more slice of life, I got very bored. Now, I have been watching a lot of slice of life with Ori. Ori was my introduction to Ouran High School Host Club, which is basically Royal Tutor minus the medieval time period, or Victorian time period? Old time period. Let's go with that.
I think it's medieval. I think you're
I don't know
right.
what time period. I don't know what time period, to be honest.
I don't know what time periods are, so, move on. That's why Outcast is untethered by time. I don't need it.
Nowhere.
I don't need to think about it.
But this is what's so interesting because there was one week where I was really not feeling good, really feeling sick, and I need a distraction. What can I watch to distract me? And I saw on my dropped list, because sometimes I peruse my dropped list on my anime list. I'm like, okay, why did I drop this one? Like maybe I should return to it. And I found the Royal Tutor on there, and I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll try that again. Maybe I'll like it more this time around. And lo and behold, I really liked it the second time around. But I think that's because I opened up my
I think
my
it's
watch
more
list to
medieval than
different
pastry.
genres.
It's like, it's tough. I don't even know. Maybe it's Victorian. It's King's, and there's a coffee shop. It feels very untethered by time, if I'm being honest as well.
Yeah, that's true. So sometimes in finding a show you like, it really does come down to time and place. I was not in the right mindset to enjoy it back in college because that is not what I enjoyed at the time. Now my tastes have changed. I still do like action-oriented stuff, but I also like slower shows too. There we go.
I do find that slice of life specifically is also one of those things that it's like, I would never be like, I'm a slice of life anime person. It's like, no. You gotta be like a specific
I wouldn't say that either.
kind of slice of... Versus it's like, I will watch basically any shonen and probably have a decent time, you know? But it's like, slice of life, you've gotta be specific.
I feel like the way to describe my style of slice of life is slice of life with extra. Like there's a supernatural element. There's a goofy plot.
It's the idea.
There's something of intrigue that's going to keep me hooked.
It's the idea
I don't want to see people just living their lives. Like take Mr. Villain's Day Off. Yeah, it's just this guy living his life and living his day off. But he's also a super powered alien that's trying to take over the planet.
I think it's the idea of that, like, that like you get this like everything has a human experience vibe. I think that's kind of the vibe, right? Is that like everything is a human experience, because it's also, I really like The Devil's a Part-Timer, where it's literally he is the devil from another dimension and he's working at McDonald's and he wants to become the manager of McDonald's. That's his goal, the manager of his McDonald's, and he's learning about Earth and he's doing all this stuff, and but like the overall thing is him living about his daily life at, you know, on Earth now in modern Japan, working at a McDonald's. And so it's like,
but it also opens itself up to like interesting commentary, because to have a character like a devil want something like that, like you could have some interesting discussions around that.
And it gives a perspective.
Character, you could get that, but it wouldn't be as intriguing.
It gives a perspective that having a human do is like, okay, you're just kind of preachy, and it's like, oh, but like, look how this person, like, who has literally no understanding of the world. That's why it's interesting with like children, when children are written very well as well, because it's this sort of like, it's this like,
also Samumenko has a creepy child character that is not sexualized. Yay! I'm sorry, I just have to give credit where credit is due.
It's very good. But what was I saying? My brain died.
Sorry, I didn't mean to derail.
Oh yeah, like having like slice of life related things through like children, right? So like I liked Gaku and Babysitters, and of course like Tadaima Kairi, and you know,
that was so cute.
Those sort of things. Buddy Daddies is very slice of life, with also them being like hitmen. Like it's like a wild thing.
Hitmen.
But it's like, because it brings both like a fun thing to the mundane, and then it also gives a perspective of the mundane from something that would be like, this is new too, right? Because it's like in Mr. Villain's Day Off, he's just very enamored by everyday things because it's new to him. And so it sort of gives you that perspective of like, oh, this is special, right?
It gives
versus
you a little bit of an appreciation
versus
too.
I feel like when like a regular normal person is doing it, it's like I am a regular normal person. It shouldn't be special to you. It's not special to
Yeah.
me, you know?
Well, it comes across as cheesy because it's like if you're
Yeah.
just a human and this is your everyday existence, like good for you. I'm glad you're happy, but also what the hell?
Well, that's why I really like there's like a big when Tumblr was very big originally. There's a
Mhm.
whole like
Never forget.
brand of blogs that I would follow that was basically like think pieces, I guess, like, you know, creative dribbles from people that were specifically like humans in a world, like humans in space, right? If there was like aliens in like a way like Star Trek or Star Wars is, where there's like humans on Earth, but then there's other, you know, aliens and planets and stuff, where we're all like an intergalactic like you know, group. So very, very Star Trek sort of vibes. And it's like all these things where it's like humans, you know, Earth is space Australia. And so it's like having all these things where it's like, oh, you know, you eat spiders, and it's like some of us do, you know, whatever, like having stuff like that, you know, or it was like, oh, you always want to have a human on your ship because, but you have to, because they're, you know, very adaptable, very this, but you have to be careful because if it's cute enough or they think it's cute enough, they'll try to, you know, befriend it, no matter how dangerous you say it is. And some humans think even more things are cute than normal humans do. So you gotta watch them. There was something that was really interesting. And so, like, you get a very, as a human, you get a very unconscious but detailed understanding of where everything is in your house. And that's why that prank of like moving everything just like a couple inches to the left really fucks up your day, because you don't
Mhm.
realize that you've have this level of spatial awareness, but you do. And so there was a whole thing, and it was about how like the human of the ship, when it was attacked by like, you know, space pirates or whatever, and they shut off the lights and everything, that the human could move around in the dark because it, you know, they understood, they knew where everything was, right? And so even though they were equally as blind as
That's
anything
so
else, they had
clever.
this like spatial awareness, right? It talks about like smiling, right? Because even on Earth, vast majority of creatures baring your teeth is a sign of aggression, of you know, a negative emotion, where in humans it's a sign of, you know, happiness. It's a very good
Happiness.
emotion, right? And so it's like this whole thing about like understanding, you know, the aliens being like, oh, you know, the human bared its teeth at me again, and then someone be like, no, 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 have you checked the human logs? That's a good thing, you know? And they're like, what? This is all, so it's very interesting. And just taking like
That's
the
awesome.
kind of moderately interesting things about like being a human that you don't even think about, and putting them into a perspective of like alien races that don't do it. I agree, P
Mm.
Sam, and it's yeah, I love that genre a lot, and I love like I specifically liked it in like the dribbles that you see on like Tumblr, right? Because it's not like a whole story. Yeah, amazing, and it was really interesting because it a lot of them are told from like the perspective of like another, like an alien like writing a log about the human, right? And it's like, oh, you know, like it's good to have a human on your ship because they're very adaptable and they're very all this sort of thing. And when you think about it, because of PCM, and what's interesting with like how you say it's like, oh, absolutely no reason for you know, the alien species to have survived so long if they like are this, that, and the other way. I think it's one of those things where it's like it ties back for me to that like space Australia thing, where on other planets, because this is very interesting. Once upon a time on Earth, in the past, when we had life on Earth, but much earlier in sort of the timeline of everything, when dinosaurs were around, Earth was very mild. Okay, so we had
Mm.
ice ages and stuff, but there's a very long period of time where the climate of Earth was, and this is the reason that dinosaurs could exist, was basically the same, and it was just pretty warm everywhere all the time, right? Especially everywhere that there was land. You know, we didn't really have you know, land in the Arctics because of Pangea and all this sort of stuff, right? And so it was very mild. There wasn't a lot of bad weather. There wasn't a lot of these sort of things. Everything was pretty fucking just bland.
Pretty tame.
Like meteorological, like climate, climate wise and meteorologically, whatever.
Meteorologically?
Yeah, that.
There you go.
Right? So it's not a series, Mason. It's basically just like a genre of think pieces of people who had blogs that would specifically reblog or write specific things with this like idea in mind. And they would just pick like a topic and be like, oh, what's a weird thing about humans?
Kind of like a free writing exercise.
Humans will literally pick up like coyotes and foxes and shit off the side of the road and be like, oh, dog, and it's like, that's
Because
fucking dangerous, Yeah, literally, the whole concept of it's friend-shaped, I want to pet it, and then bringing that into like an alien environment. And it's like, no, it looks like puppy. And they're like, that thing can kill you in 8 different ways if you get within 5 feet of it. And it's like, but puppy, this sort of thing. And then the fact that we as humans did become best friends with like one of nature's most widespread apex predators, a wolf, and so it's like a very interesting sort of like think piece to go of like how would like another species that has no concept like this, that maybe they did live on a planet where everything was deadly, so they could not trust anything, they couldn't get close to domesticate things like that, and being enamored and almost like in awe by the fact of the human prowess that we conquered the wolf, sort of thing, right? And it's like, no, I'm not its master, it's my friend, and that being like a mind-blowing thing, right? And it's like, but you can't talk to each other, and it's like, I don't need to talk to it, we understand each other, right?
It's
that idea that you can have an emotional understanding with your pet, right? That you can have this like, I know what it's thinking and it knows what I'm thinking, even though we don't share a language at all. And that sort of being weird for alien species, because maybe they've evolved past that, right? They've evolved to the point where they don't do that or whatever. And it was just a very interesting sort of brand of thing that I liked to enjoy. But yeah, so what people don't realize is that a lot of times on Earth have been very, very bland in like climate wise and like Earth related events, right? And that's why the mass extinctions happen, is because one big thing really fucked it up. But when you think about the world that we live in now as humans, it is pretty fucking volatile compared to a lot of previous, history that we understand of life on Earth. And we've adapted. The fact that we have a base, it's a science lab base, but in the Antarctic, right? The fact that we span basically the entire globe, somebody lives somewhere, or at least can pass through it. Like think about passing through any of these
really
deserts before we have the level of technology we have now, right? Think of the first people who got to the North Pole, who got to the South Pole. They don't have the level of technology we have now. They don't have the level of technology we had when the first person scaled Everest, right? And that the idea is that we've adapted through technology, but we've adapted to be able to survive vast majorities of climates and storms. And, we talk about the unfortunate tragedies of a lot of these superstorms that we're having and a lot of these hurricanes and all the crazy weather that we're having, which is, yes, more volatile than we've ever had before because of climate change. But the fact that it is like, what is the problem? The problem is not the storm necessarily. The problem is where the storm hit. If the hurricane hit a place that normally got hurricanes, well, it would have been devastating. It would have been less devastating because those places are prepared. You think about it with like what happened in Texas recently in the winters where it got so cold that their power went out because the power grid was never prepared to handle that sort of weather because of where they, where it exists in the world and what their climate was, versus you have that, Mars and I live in the Northeast. It's like that's cold.
We're
You know,
prepared.
like what? That's nothing. Our power grid would surely be fine, and it is because it has been. You know, I think there's been one blackout because of snow related things that was like a major
Yeah.
blackout in our like lived lives, which isn't that long. You know, it's only 20 and a half years, but like 2.5 decades is the words that I wanted, but I mixed them together.
Okay,
Yeah,
I was very
Oregon
confused for a
Trail.
second.
That's what I wanted. I wanted 2.5 decades, but I said 20 and a half years. But you know, such
There
is
you
life.
go.
In the Northeast of having power outages due to cold and snow related things. You know, the joke is like, oh, the North gets like 8 feet of snow and is like, ah, yep, you still go to school. And the South gets, you know, 2 inches of snow and it's like, ah, everything's closed. And that's a preparation thing. That's solely a preparation thing. But the idea is that you can have that. Right? Yeah. Oh, Sandy was rough. I had power. I only lost power for like 8 hours, and like 5 of those hours were overnight. But I live on the same grid as the fire department. So it was like,
Oh boy.
we need that up and running, you know.
Yeah, that can't go down.
That can't go down. But so it was
Actually
just
took a
very
nap through
interesting.
most of Sandy.
Yeah, right. We were watching Rio and we missed the last like 15 minutes of Rio because the power went out.
Oof.
I remember that vividly. But so the idea, you know, because PCM is bringing like, oh, like no idea how the aliens survived so long. I think it's very possible for other worlds that have intelligent life to the level of, you know, prolonged space travel could be specifically very mild. You know, because if you're thinking about it, the less
I feel like that would be
adversity
exactly what's happening.
and the less adversity to a species, the faster they would be able to evolve in the sense and this technology, because they can focus all of those resources on making space travel versus having to have scientists focus on surviving hurricanes better and earthquakes and tsunamis and all this sort of stuff, you know. So I think it is really cool. What's really interesting was another one I remember was like Earth being Space Australia again. I'm gonna keep bringing it up.
Yes.
Mason, I'll say it
Earth
again.
being Space Australia is so good.
It's so good, and it was like these
It's
aliens.
just the best concept.
It was like these aliens invaded Earth, and they like took like it ended up being like a woman biologist as like their guide as they wanted to conquer the Earth. And they're like walking through the woods or something, and she's like, oh shit, and she like dives out of the way, and they're like, what? And a fucking moose just decks them, because moose are massive. You can't even like you have to
Do
see a
not go up
moose
against the moose,
to
you
understand how
guys.
massive a moose is. And a moose is
They
literally like a
are
moving boulder.
Huge.
And so it's like she
You're not
dives
gonna
out of
win
the
again
way,
with the moose.
and the moose just fucking like wrecks the aliens. There's another time, and she's like, don't go up to that tree. And they're like, what? Why? And the guy like goes up to the tree, and it's full of Japanese honeybees. And what do Japanese honeybees do? They swarm, and then they beat their wings to raise the temperature. And so that basically within the story, they cooked this alien alive inside its suit. She's like, yep,
Oof.
don't I told you.
She's like,
You know,
tried
the
to
idea that
warn
like
ya.
a bear, right? A bear. We struggle now to kill bears with like guns and stuff. You need a pretty sizable gun. Their skulls are surprisingly bulletproof. It's very wild to think about. So now imagine an alien force who's specifically, you know, not dealt with something of that level. Their weapons might not work against a bear. You know, maybe their weapons could be better than our guns, but if our guns barely work against bears, who the fuck knows? And so it's wild. Oh, I have to look at this PCM not Neffy thing.
Oh, I need to too. Let's see.
Ooh.
I'm nearly done with Milano's tale.
We got
so
ears. We got
close.
is this raccoon? It's giving raccoon.
Ooh.
The tail is what's tipping me off to raccoon. You gave up on the non-human legs. Ah, never give up, PCM.
Okay.
Serval. Oh,
Raccoon
okay,
or
okay.
tanuki? No,
I
tanukis
see.
don't have
No, a
striped tails.
serval, a serval. You don't see them all the time.
Serval.
They're very popular in the furry community, but there's
very
something that I only
cool.
really see in the furry community.
Talk
You know
about
what? I
outside
need
of
more.
that.
I need more civets,
What?
not civets. Civets.
Civets.
I need more civets.
There's an important distinction.
I don't know what I was thinking about, but I was thinking about something, and I was like, "Ooh, imagine though if it was a weasel." It's like I don't remember what I was talking about, but I remember that specifically. It's a civet. Civet. They usually say it's a civet cat, but it's not a cat. It's like a long. It's a long
Definitely
boy.
not a cat.
Yeah, but they call it a civet cat sometimes. It's like a long boy. It's got fun patterns on it and all that sort of stuff.
That's the kind of stuff we like.
We like.
We want the fun patterns. Oh, we've officially entered tangent hour.
Well, we didn't have anything else.
Questions about
anything.
Comics, or anything. Like
Our
that.
comic, whatever.
Do drop them in chat.
The Ace Attorney AU is still coming out.
Yes,
oh, I forgot to put it in chat.
Love it.
But on the if you are a Cook Tier Ko-fi member or higher, you are getting the Band AU, which one did come out today. I didn't post it in the Discord, but it is posted on the Ko-fi. Trying to think. 9 to 10.
Enjoy all you Ko-fi
Is 9
members.
to 10 cosine hour? I feel like 9 to 10 would be sine hour. Oh, maybe no. No, I think you're right. 8 to 9 would be sine hour. 9 to 10 is cosine hour, and then 10 to 11 is tangent hour. Done.
That feels appropriate. Yes.
There we go.
I do not disagree.
Perfect. So yes, Mason, you are correct. You've solved the equation.
Why isn't this? Oh, there we go.
What am I doing for
Why were
work
you
tomorrow?
fighting
I don't
me,
even
computer?
know. I should check.
Acquaint yourself with the schedule. Yes.
Oh goodness, my phone is on last battery legs. I forgot.
Oh no.
It's okay. I'm charging it now.
Throw that thing on a brick.
Okay, where is this address? I feel like it's where I want it to be, but I don't know.
That's always so fun.
Yes, it is where I want it to be. Nice.
Because, guys, tomorrow I'm going to see The Wild Robot. I'm so excited.
Very nice. Okay.
I don't know how I did it, you guys. I somehow talked my family into going to see a movie in the middle of the week.
That's pretty wild.
I don't know how I did it.
That's pretty crazy.
But it worked.
That's always the trick, PCM. Blending it.
The trick of any artist. Blend.
Yep.
Okay, Milano, we're just gonna do your scales quick and dirty. I'm sorry. You're taking too long, and I gotta be on to the next thing now.
What is happening? And why is it not doing what I want?
That is a good question. I wish I had an answer for you.
My phone does this cool thing, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna charge so that when you, like, at a rate so that when you wake up in the morning, I'll be fully charged. And it's like, okay, I want you to charge
That'd be
fast
nice.
right now though. Like I don't need you to
Mm.
be slow. I need you to charge as fast as possible now, please.
Like, please, please.
Yeah, please.
Would it listen?
It will not.
Ah, goddamn. I will say this, my tea became extra sweet once that cookie fell into it.
Well, yes, that's
I
what'll
mean, it's
happen.
mush and crumbs now, which is absolutely disgusting, but it is very sweet.
And now it says it's connected but not charging. How dare you?
Ugh. How dare it do that to you? Bad phone. Is that the new one?
Yeah.
Ah, sad. Sad hours.
All right. It's more one of those things.
It might as well be Maze. Like, oh, jeez. It's not even that. It kind of looks like overnight oats,
Ah,
but
okay.
replace the milk with tea.
It's one of
I'm
those
like,
things where it's like, oh, I know that you're using an old charger, so I'm unhappy about it. It's like, bitch, it's the same shit. And it's like,
I hate when
yeah,
technology does that. It's
but
like,
I know.
it's a charger. Take it, use it.
Well, it's like, but this one would be better. It's like, sure, I get it, but I don't have that one right now. So deal with it.
Like, what do they expect you to do? Magic one out of thin air?
I'm so upset that they stopped giving you blocks with your phones and your devices now. They only give you the charger. And it's like,
Ugh.
it's like, okay, I understand the premise of like everybody has a block. And it's like, not when now there's suddenly USB-C to USB-C, both. Right?
Yeah.
It was like, okay, when all of my shit was USB, yeah, I had blocks for that. I no longer have blocks for this. And then number two, it's like, but the blocks get better, guys. Like the blocks get faster. Can you give me a fucking faster block? Jesus Christ.
Just give me a block that works. Please.
Every one of my cords should come with a fucking adapter block. They used to. I remember the good old days of adapter blocks, of having too many adapter blocks. Now I have to buy adapter blocks separate. Pissed. Pissed.
It's a scam.
Everything's a scam.
They do it to get more money out
Everything's
of you.
a scam. Well, I ain't buying it.
That is very true.
From the main peeps. Fuck them.
They screwed you over.
They
don't
did.
get our money.
They didn't give me a fucking block. They don't deserve any other money. All right, Mars, entertain for like 30 seconds while I literally grab water.
Can do. Have a good time grabbing water. Trying to think, what has I been up to? You posted a silly PCM. All right, I'm gonna go check. This will be my little break. Oh. She's so cute. Oh, wait, what is my computer doing? I don't want that. Go away. Oh, the live Neffy reaction. She just came from Metal Gear Solid. She's got the exclamation point over her head. Ooh. I like these added on dragon features. These look so damn cool. Really coming along. I've played in Hero Forge a couple times, like played around with it, but I don't know. I was never satisfied with what I came up with. I was like,
I've returned.
Nah, it's just not fitting the vibe I'm going for.
Hero Forge is one of those things that you can make, anyone can make decent stuff, but you actually have to learn it as like a program to make good shit. Like PCM's like learned it, you know?
See, that's why PCM stuff looks so good.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, like, I don't know, with Heroes Forge, I'm just like, I don't have that kind of time. Maybe I'll learn it in the future sometime. but other things take priority.
You don't need to learn it,
Milano is
Mars, because you have
done.
a free artist, so...
This is also very true.
I've spoiled Mars.
Look at these. We got the two buddies sitting side by side. Look at them. So cute. So damn cute. I don't know what that line is.
Mars has never been
merge all of this.
A D&D player that didn't know the joys of having an artist.
Oh, I've always had art of my character.
She's been spoiled.
I've never not known a life without art. Okay. Oh, I forgot to pause OBS. Stop recording. Okay, we gotta do that intro again. Yes, guys, videos are coming out on my end too. Look forward to the first one on Thursday. I have no idea what I'm gonna say or do, but I do have a video, which is nice.
Ooh, PCM. Oh yeah, you
That's
did
the
it.
sad thing about one-shot characters, PCM. It's like it's one done, never again.
Yeah.
I put so much effort into this one character for a Halloween one-shot. Her name was Adelaide Whispers. Yes, it's a reference, and I will give a cookie to whoever guesses it. But she was very fun. I literally spent so long making her costume, making an instrument for her, just to use her for one night. Oh my. I need to bring her back.
You can.
I want to.
I don't have Bard Monopoly anymore.
Adelaide Whispers. Yes, it is an Over to Garden Wall reference, pastry puff.
Over to Garden Wall.
Over to Garden
Which
Wall.
we have a watch party for on the 30th, guys.
Yes! Oh, I'm so excited. Guys, I finally got my hands on a DVD of Over the Garden Wall, and I'm so happy. It's going to arrive this Thursday. I can't wait.
Ooh.
I needed it in my life. Like, as much as I love our pirate boys.
Oh, Adelaide.
And being one of them. Like, they're so much fun. But it's a lot of setup. And I want to put a DVD in, press a button, and forget about it. And just enjoy. Sorry, guys. I'm a lady of convenience. I definitely prefer convenience over the latter.
Well, I mean, you're also supporting.
Exactly. Well, apparently,
that is nice,
Cartoon Network is doing something for the anniversary of it on November
10 years.
3rd.
10 years.
Yeah, going strong.
Oh, I feel old.
I really do too. I was trying to enjoy the moment and not pay attention to that part of it.
Well, it was cool. Okay, this is what hurts me. It's like, wow, that's so cool. 10 years, and it's still so in the public eye, and it's still so, and it's like, and I remember when it aired on Cartoon Network. You're like, oh.
Yeah, we're gonna ignore that part. We're gonna ignore that part. Aster, I'm so glad you're naked. This makes it so much easier to color you.
That's such a line. Okay, that's another topic we should do is use of nudity for things other than comedic and sexual
Samurai
things.
Flamenco and The Adventure Zone.
And now Outcast.
And now Outcast.
I mean, they're not fully naked, but you know, still.
He's fully naked, but the top half is, and that means I don't need 1,000 layers for clothing. Yay.
Aster is the one character. He's not the one character, but he's a character that's very like, even naked, you're pretty not naked. He's just got the feathers.
He's got built-in pants.
Yeah, he does got built-in pants. Secret pants.
Secret pants. Under the real ones. Secret pants. Actually, which ones are the real pants? think I've gone too far with this line of questioning.
Oh, I mean, he has to wear pants. The rest is just like if you're extra hairy down there. It's still weird.
Okay, let's figure out how to do this. This is skin. Pretty sure that's his neckline, not a feather.
Mason, you've never seen Over the Garden Wall?
Really? I thought you were at the watch party last year.
You gotta come to the watch party then.
Yeah, this is like a yearly tradition for us.
This has
You
been
gotta
now.
watch it.
Since we've been streamers, we've continued to
Maybe
have.
rewatching No Evil is actually more tradition. I think we've
No,
done that
actually, it's
more
not.
than
We've
Over the
only
Garden
done
Wall.
one watch of No Evil.
Really? I thought it was two.
No, only ever one. It's really long.
Hmm.
Like, it's not that long, but it's a whole extra hour than Over the Garden Wall is. Like I said,
Oh, yeah.
Over the Garden Wall is 2 hours. No Evil was 3 at the time and has gained more episodes since then. So it's like,
That is also very true.
yeah, it's a long one.
Ooh, you're going to post a glow up PCM? I'd love to see it. Posted. All right, let's go check it out. Take
We'd
a break
love
from
to
Nikki
see.
Astor. Ooh. I am digging those spiral horns. That's
The
really
Curious
cool.
George Christmas special. I don't think I've seen the Curious George Christmas special. I have seen Curious George shows, but I don't think I had a book.
The only special I remember is Curious George Goes to the Hospital, because for some
I
reason
remember
they
that
played
one.
that for us in kindergarten.
I remember that
is
one.
it the one where he eats the puzzle piece?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, we saw the same one.
Yeah. I had a whole book of like it was Curious George and Friends.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, my favorite one, I had a dachshund. My first dog was a dachshund, and there was a dachshund in it, and his name was Pretzel. And Pretzel was so long he could tie himself into knots, and it was so cute.
That's adorable.
Yeah, a very monkey Christmas, amazing.
I think my go-to Christmas specials are definitely the Peanuts. Like, I have to. It's part of tradition at this point. And then recently, I actually watched the Garfield Christmas special. And when I say recently, I mean like the last holiday season. And I really liked that one more than I thought I would. So I was like, okay, I guess this is on the rewatch list. Oh, and Taylor of Gloucester. Love that one. It does not feel like Christmas until I've watched that.
I think the only big one that we really make like a significant no, two of them. My family, specifically the ones that we definitely make a point to watch, A Christmas Story. That's my father's favorite by far. And
My mom loves that one.
I love, again, it's not like a Christmas movie, but it's a Christmas movie. I like Home Alone 2.
Counts. Oh,
No,
that's a
Home
fun
Alone
one.
2.
Christmas movie? It's not a Christmas movie.
They don't, I guess they kind of talk about it. That's not the focus of it, though.
Neither is the first one, but that's a Christmas movie.
Is the first one, I always forget if the first one's Christmas. The second one I really
They're
associate with
both
Christmas. Okay, the second one I really associate with Christmas. But they also go
Yeah,
to
they're
New York,
both-
so
they're
it like
both
hits home
Christmas
more, I guess,
oriented.
being home. It's like, yes, I
In-
know those
In the
places.
second movie, he's upset going to Florida because there are no Christmas trees in Florida. So his
Well,
mom
yeah.
tells him to decorate a palm tree.
The second one is the one I'm like, this is very Christmas. He goes to the toy store in the city, he sees the Macy's windows, like that. I feel it. The first one I always
He
forget
sees
is Christmas.
Trump. Nothing more Christmassy than that.
Yeah, exactly. Hot take: Garfield isn't funny. I'm never a massive Garfield person. I did see that one Garfield movie once, and
Was
I
it
barely
the live
remember it.
action one?
Yeah, it was the live action one.
Yeah,
But
that
he was
that
animated
bad.
very cartoonily, and then there's like a scene where he's like in the mirror with him. It's like the two Garfields. You know what I'm talking? There's like two
Oh.
Garfields.
Are you talking Tale of Two Kitties?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah,
That's the
we
only
had
one I've
that
ever
one. My
seen.
brother loved rewatching that one.
That's the only one I've ever seen. It was on like TV one time, and we like watched it. God, that's a weird thing to say. There's a whole God. I've been
It
watching a lot
really
of stuff.
is.
I've been watching a lot of stuff where it's like the disappearance of like preteen media is like an issue, and it's like, yeah,
Well, we were talking about this the other day, I think, where it's just like, oh no, maybe I was talking about this with one of my
it had
coworkers
to be
because
somebody
one
else.
of the
It
big
wasn't me.
things I work with kids primarily, and one of the things you can use to like get to know a kiddo is, oh, what shows do you like then you could get
But
a
there's like
toy
no
center around
shows
that,
anymore.
stickers they could work for, but there's almost nothing, and all these kids respond with, I like Roblox. These are preschoolers
But it's like
and they're playing like Roblox. I'm like, they follow like YouTube channels now, but it's not even the channels themselves. They follow content. Like
well, because
if it's
they don't have the
specifically like
concept yet.
Roblox content, it doesn't matter
Who
who's
it
making
is.
it as
Yeah.
long as it is Roblox.
That was an interesting thing in a lot of these videos I was listening to. It was interesting
It's like,
about how
you're not watching
things
PBS, Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon.
things that were considered I guess hurdles to ease have been such building blocks that you never thought about of connection with your peers. And what I'm saying is that like when you had to watch television, right? You had to watch the shows that were on television. Every television aired those shows at those times. So all of your peers were watching those shows because that's all that you had, right? Maybe you didn't all watch all of them, but out of the pool of 5 shows, all of you watched at least 2, at least, you know? And so that's why it was like, God, SpongeBob, everybody knew SpongeBob because that's what was on, you know? Everybody knew, literally pick a show because that's what was on, right?
10 was a big one.
Yeah.
Pokemon was a massive one in my
I don't know
elementary
what part of
school.
it's you're saying is an epidemic enthused, but yeah, it is. And it's a weird issue. Oh, you've seen 9-year-olds on VR chat? That's an epidemic? Yeah. Yeah. And it's really this thing. And it's like I feel very odd in the sense of like, because it's like, okay, I have to compose exactly how I want to say this. It makes me feel odd
so hard by saying this.
in the sense of like, no. It's not that. It's like, I can very much recognize with like, you know, it being put at like, yeah, children and preteens and stuff don't have media catered to them anymore, because even on YouTube, because you're not supposed to be younger than 13 to use social media, right, legally, you know, nothing is catered towards, you know, children and preteens with a standard of quality that TV had, right? Because you have like the weird, like really horrible, you know, brain rot stuff that is catered towards children. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about something that had a level of quality that had to exist, right? To be decent, you know, because this is what everybody was watching. You were shaping, you know, an era by having this show on cable, right? Versus it's like, well, oh yeah, I have, you know, millions and millions of subscribers, but technically nothing is, there was never a necessity. I didn't necessarily was ever going to get that amount of subscribers, right? So it wasn't like I had this pre sort of notion of like, I'm gonna shape young minds, right? And it's like, oh no shit, suddenly I'm shaping young minds. That's the difference between like a content creator and like, you know, a TV show, right? And then on top of that, you don't have, if online is such a big thing, it's not, Mason. Thank you for the concern. But you lost all these spaces of kids on the internet, because it's like they always talk about, oh, like Generation Alpha is the first generation to have like the internet their entire life. And it's like, well, that is true in the sense of like the level of internet we have today. I was on the internet since the age of 3. However, I had Webkins and Club Penguin and,
Yeah.
Neopets. And they all had their flaws, but these were spaces that were specifically for children. And it was weird if an adult was on it. Right? Like that was like
it was protected too.
It was protected. It was
a
very
big
censored,
difference.
right? It was very all this stuff, and you've lost like all of that.
Yeah.
You've lost. But even and
I
then
don't
you go
even
into
know if
preteen,
there
like
are,
Pop Tropica, like all these sort of
sites
things.
like that, honestly, anymore.
Yeah, I was
haven't seen
told by
one
my
in a
parents at the
while.
age of 3 they put me on a computer, and the internet was a thing at that point in time, so it was like you're doing stuff. But again, it was Club Penguin and
I stuck to CD-ROMs for a while, and then my parents are like, okay, you can go on the internet.
well, it's like they would navigate to a specific site, right? So yeah, it was Club Penguin, it was Webkins, I wasn't a Neopets person, but Neopets was the big thing. Like I said,
That was
Pop
huge. That was
Tropica
a
when
big
you were
war,
getting older.
actually. There was a war between Webkins and Neopets. Like,
Yeah, that was
which
the whole
one
thing.
is better? That was crazy.
And it's like you don't have spaces like that anymore. So where are they supposed to go? They're being shoved into the older spaces. And so a part of me is definitely, it's like, I want to fulfill the duty and like because as like a creator, right, it's like of making a comic, it's like this part and it's like, I want to be the next Avatar and Last Airbender. This really in-depth show that is still for like teens and preteens and
Adults
stuff would
and
be
kids.
really cool to make. But then there's also part of it's like, what if that's not the story I want to tell, right? Like, what if that's not where I want to go, right? Because it's not Mars that I didn't sit down here and make Outcast specifically for an audience originally. It's just the story that we wanted to tell involved this stage of life. And so it's because then it's a very interesting thing of like, it's the adults that have to make the content for kids, and you hear so many horrific
when
things.
people say like, why do you care? It's just for kids. And I'm like, well, adults make it.
Yeah.
So
Well, like
what
one
does it matter? If
adults
it's for
make
kids,
it.
an adult still made it.
Mm-hmm. Well, see, the smartphone is another level than Dues. Yeah, because smartphones didn't exist until maybe I was in like, because I'm trying to remember. I think I had to have gotten my first smartphone in like 9th grade. I think that's when I got my first smartphone. The iPhone one was 2009. Okay, I know I had it later than a lot of people.
11th grade.
I had a cell phone. I had a cell phone.
I had like one of those classic flip phones. That was
I had the pink Razor for a number of years, and then I got the LTG chocolate, which was like, it felt in between because it was a brick, it was a touchscreen, right? So it felt like I had a smartphone, but it didn't have
like a happy medium.
Yeah, it didn't have any capabilities a smartphone had. It was literally just a touchscreen, regular phone. But it was like, I felt cooler. And then I think I got my first actual smartphone going into high school at some point, because I feel like I feel like I could sit here and picture myself sitting in our high school halls with the LTG chocolate in 9th grade, and then partway through
I feel like
getting
you did. I feel like I have a memory of that.
I like very distinctly remember this, and then getting the smartphone because I got like a Samsung S3, I think, was my first smartphone, and I think that had to be in like fall of 9th grade at some point, maybe like spring of 9th grade. So the smart devices and definitely being able to take the internet with you anywhere.
Gotten it for your Christmas as well.
Yeah. But then it's like definitely the ability to take the device that's specifically internet connected with you anywhere is a whole thing. But I feel like that's not the crux of the problem. Does it compound it? Sure. But I don't think that that's necessarily it's more like we had like safety wheels on, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
The level of technology was at a point where it was like, you are here not because you want to be or you think you should be, but this is the level of technology we have, right? Like I talked about, where it's like you have 5 shows to choose from, so you're watching shows that are the same as your friends because you don't have that. When there's hundreds of blah, blah, blah Roblox people.
Well, now you have so many streaming
You know?
services too. And not everyone's parents are subscribed to the same thing.
That's what I'm saying, dudes.
So
Right.
you could be watching something totally different that you've never heard of from one of your friends.
And then just having it be sort of Wild West of like the TV was such a, you know, being on cable, right, is such like a, it's seen societally as kind of like an honor, you know, to a certain extent, right? So it was like when a show is on there, it's been like vetted and like done all this stuff and everything, versus anyone can put on YouTube, basically. You know, there's no level of effort and quality that needs to go into any given YouTube video. And, you know,
Yeah.
how
And kids can
anything
just
comes to be,
click on whatever they want.
you know, yeah. And so there's no sort of like limit there. And that's sort of the difference, versus like, because of the way that you had to have money to get on, you know, cable television and do all this stuff, it was filtered more innately, and that's what's so interesting about
just
it.
by how the system works.
Is exactly
yeah.
is just by how the system works, put this sort of like safety net in place. And now that that system is gone, it's like nothing has caught up, and so it's very wild. But basically all I'm saying is I'm kind of sitting here and it's like, could be fun to make the next comic like child friendly or something, and it's like, but what if we don't want to do that? It's like wild, you know? Because like Avatar: The Last Airbender is 100%
It's
like
still one of the
preteen
best shows out
media, right? Because it's literally about Aang growing up. Like, it's the whole thing. And so
Adventure
it
Time
is
one of the best ones out there. It's about Finn growing up.
And so it is so it's like, I love all these things. I love all these things very, very much, you know, dear to the heart. So it's like, you know, could be a thing to create, but then it's also like, is that what we want to do? You know, it's always a wild sort of like tiptoe line, because it's not necessarily that it's like we look down on children's media or preteen media or anything like that.
Not at
it's
all.
more just like,
I mean, look at all the examples we used in our
Exactly.
character examples.
we just want to tell the story we want to tell. And when you're an adult, it feels like sometimes it's like it just leans that way. So it's just a very wild sort of like, oh, you know, crazy.
The compromises that must be made.
You don't need your strap on, Hudson. I took your bag off you. Those were 2 words, not a hyphen.
I know they were 2 words. But between, Aster, thank God you're naked, and Hudson, take your strap off, we're going tonight.
That is not what I said.
I know.
I don't know, enthuse.
Yeah,
there's
that's also the difference too, enthuse. Families could be around more often back then as well. Now sometimes you have 2 parents who have to work during the day. They can't spend as much time with the kid either. So it's like it's a whole thing.
It is a
Like
whole
honestly,
thing.
when you start picking at the threads, the whole thing
Oh,
comes
it's
undone.
real rough. Yeah.
We got some catching up to do.
That we do.
Let's do your tail next, Ferrix. I'm on to Ferrix now. I might actually finish tonight.
There was also an interesting thing. Nice, good. I need that ASAP. But 2,
I'm working on it.
there is an interesting thing as well about like, it's hard for indie creators like us to make younger media, even if even if people wanted to, because of how the sort of system of being paid works. Who has the money for
God,
Patreon,
yes.
for Ko-fi, for Kickstarter? Not kids. You know,
Definitely not
it's
kids.
adults. And who do you need to pay you? All that sort of stuff. It's crowdfunding, right? And so it's like,
And certainly people have tried it in the past. I'm not too familiar with any successful examples, though.
I can't think of a single widely known indie media that has been for a younger audience.
Me neither.
Because even the big one I'm thinking of, because obviously Has Been Hotel, very adult. Another big project I'm thinking of that just got funded is college age characters.
Oh, I'm not familiar with that one.
It's called Heart of Titan.
Oh.
They're college age characters. It has that off-brand. It has that Keith, Gulliver Keith guy that I love, Orion, my boy.
Hey. Oh shit! I know what you're talking about. I was just blanking on the name.
Yeah. So Heart of Titan. I'm pretty sure they're in college. There was another one I've been following that I'm absolutely blanking on the name, but they're in like a band. I'm also pretty sure they're like college age. Like they're literally in like an indie band. It's just everything's older.
Yeah. So we're getting different stories now. But then it's interesting because you see what gets popular, and then you have like these YouTube I'm forgetting the terminology, but basically they churn out
Content farms.
And thank you, that's the word. I knew it was content something.
Yeah, content farm.
It's just like you see what they're using, and it's like Has Been Hotel, Digital Circus, Hell of a Boss, and it's like, this is not for kids.
Yeah.
Not even.
And even
close.
the content that they're making on it is not for kids.
Not even. No, not at all.
What is happening here, Hudson? This is
He
your
fighting
arm.
ya?
No, it's more just like, what line did I mean to make? So it's just
Such
a
is
very
the age-old question.
it's a very wild dichotomy of like, did I summon him? Is he here? No. Of like
Not yet.
having this sort of like, it's like, oh, I have this like noble, like, oh, it'd be very cool to make something, you know, like Avatar, where it definitely is for, you know, younger audiences, but still really, really good. But then it's also like, but is that what I want to make? And it's like this dichotomy of
are
like,
those the kind of stories we want to tell? Because
yeah,
look at what we're making with Outcast. Very deep, very character driven, very adult centered, I'd say.
it's
Like,
adult in the sense of what
PG-13,
their
I'd say.
problems are, not necessarily
Yeah.
the content, if that makes sense. It's more like kids are not struggling with this in the same way as what the
Yeah.
characters are going through. Honestly, it could totally be told with like, I guess the word I would use could be like kid gloves, where it's like nobody has to curse, nobody has to like, you know, be out of PG-13, but just like the story itself wouldn't resonate, if that makes sense. It's not the same struggles that a younger audience is going through.
Hodson has the biggest potty mouth out of all of them.
Yeah, and he
just
hasn't even
keeps going
actually
cluck,
cursed.
cluck, cluck over and over.
But it's like, it's definitely like, I wouldn't say that the content itself is necessarily specifically mature, but the sort of struggles are definitely struggles that adults are having, and, you know, not that children have, because that's the difference, you know?
Yeah. But I also think very much the focus with Outcast was, this is a story we want to see. Like, this is a story
Exactly.
we would read right now. So it was
That's
very
what I'm
much
saying.
made with that mindset
And that's
going
what
in.
brings me back to the like, would it be cool? Yeah, but is that a story I want to make? No, and you have to make what you're passionate about, otherwise you hate it, you know? You wouldn't have a good time.
Otherwise it's not gonna be fun.
Yeah.
You're not gonna have a good time. This is not your pupil color. What am I doing? This is your shadow color. Can you tell which character I'm working on?
This is not your pupil color. This is your shadow color.
Mm-hmm.
Ferrix?
Yep.
He's the only one that has more than 3 colors.
Exactly. But I think I'm getting the hang
But see,
of his
the-
diamond dyes.
But the difference isn't those. There still is kid struggles in Avatar. There's the struggles of Aang wanting to just be a kid and have a good time, but having to grow up, right? There's the struggles of Sokka needing to be like the man of his family, growing up too soon, you know, like all this sort of stuff. There is like still, it's still centered around children. They're still young, you know, versus like,
But it's also set up in a way where an adult can look at that and say, "Oh, wow, I relate to that."
but see, I feel like I think this
that
is
just
the
comes
difference.
from making a good story.
Yeah, I think that anything with good, compelling characters and narrative can appeal to adults because we were children once. So you
100%.
have that experience, right? Think about Bluey, right? Bluey is well written. I'm not. You're not drawn to it because, oh my god, I'm an adult now and I'm seeing how this applies to my daily life now. It's no, I remember being a kid, right? Like
Even
that's
though
what it
some
is.
episodes do that.
But you know, overall, the main thing is I remember being a kid and being like that and doing that, right? And getting to look back and see that, right? And so it is like, oh, I think that a lot of kids shows that we watched that are very good, like Avatar, well, do have, you know, quote unquote adult themes in the sense of like the war and, you know, like literal genocide of the airbenders and you know, misogyny from Sokka and all this sort of stuff. There is still like they are still children and they still have, you know, preteen teen struggles that they're going through alongside this kind of world thing. I mean, look at Toph and Katara having their little girls' day and the girls like bullying them, right? Like that's a kid thing, right? That, oh, I'm wearing makeup and I think I'm pretty, and then it's like, no, we, you know, that whole thing, that's a kid thing, right? There's a, even with like I'm blanking on the sister of Zuko's name.
Azula?
Thank you, Azula. Azula and her like losing friends with May, and like that's still a child thing. You know, you don't really think about that as much as an adult. And a lot of it is more like I can relate as being a child, you know, to these sort of things. And so if you write it well enough, an adult can relate to a kid story, but certain adult struggles are not things that kids should be relating to in the sense of like,
Hope not.
but I'm trying to toe this line very carefully because there's a difference between like war is happening in a time when I am alive as a child that is affecting me, even though I shouldn't, quote unquote, have to deal with war as a child. There's that's a separate thing. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm more talking about like there's a difference between I'm a kid and I'm trying to figure out,
like in Avatar, like when you watch that show, you understand, okay, these two nations, as titled by the show, are fighting. These two people are fighting. And the main fighters, at least in the beginning, are the main character, the Avatar, Aang, and Zuko. Like, that's simplified enough that kids can understand it. As the show goes on, it starts making those themes a little bit more complex and introducing the idea of like propaganda, rewriting history, like these little things here and there.
But that's stuff that is still, in a sense, secondary, if that makes sense, right? That's stuff that you pick up on because it's there, but it's not like the necessarily like what they're like, oh, the focus. I'm trying to, but my point was being more, it's like, there's a difference between like, I'm a kid and I'm trying to figure out who I am as a person, or I'm trying to become less narcissistic and more compassionate, because that's a thing that kids have to go through, because that's how weird works. And versus an adult being like, oh my God, I've wasted my life and now I don't know what to do with it. Or like, oh my God, I think I went to college and spent all this money and I got this job and I hate it. Now what? You know, like there's a difference in like things. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know,
No,
a kid is not worrying
definitely.
about,
Adults
I've
deal
wasted
with
my
different
life.
struggles than kids do.
Yeah.
Absolutely, 100%, because they're at different stages in their life.
And then
that just makes sense.
Yeah, and then the difference is that the adults had the kids' struggles, so you can remember them. A kid should not have had any of these adult struggles yet, so will not understand
hope.
them. And that's the difference, right? Versus like the framing of the war and the propaganda, that's happening around a kid, no matter what, unfortunately. But like that stuff is happening in the world that you live in, versus it being like an adult problem, if that makes any sense. Right?
Okay,
I think
I see what you're getting at.
it's like a framing versus like a, because that would be like
In my
showing
mind,
the internet.
While they don't outright say like this is propaganda, they do take time to focus on it and use it to
Yeah.
show like, oh, this is another way that Ozai is wrong, like how he's falsifying history. So you don't know what that means as a kid, but you recognize, oh, this is a villainous thing to do. So it works to make the antagonist
But how do
even
they
worse
show
than he
it?
already is.
When Aang goes to school.
Goes to school.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that's the difference. We're not showing propaganda in the news. Children aren't watching the
No.
news. No, they're showing you go and you're learning
If anything,
history
I
wrong.
think it's even creepier that it happens in the school.
But see how it's still like a child framing of it? Right?
It's still a child
It's still
setting.
like this
It's
is
still a child-oriented
where
setting.
a child would experience propaganda, should there be it, right, is here in the school.
Well, that's kind of like just talking in general, doing things plot-wise that makes sense to your setting. I think that's actually a huge, like some shows get it right and other shows absolutely do not. Like, certain
100%.
things should only happen in certain areas in a plot.
No, definitely.
Like, it just makes sense because these are child characters and we're seeing things through a child's perspective. Where are they going to learn about this? At school.
But
Like,
that's
it
what really
totally checks
pushes it
out.
as still being a kids show. Because okay, that's the right. Okay, I'm trying to just be as coherent as possible. There's a difference between a show that is for kids, that is centered from their perspective and the struggles that they would be having in this world, and have and thus the world being like, oh, as an adult you could be like, oh yeah, shit, that shit's really extra bad, you know, because I understand the even greater context of what is happening as an adult. And then there's the second level of being, good night, Mason, being
Night,
like,
Mason. Thanks for hanging.
damn it, I lost it.
Oh no!
I
Ori,
lost
you
it.
were on such a good
I was on
roll.
such a good roll, because it's having that, and then having like the whole thing is having adult struggles in the world. You know, there's that difference.
Well, I think that's an important balance to strike, is that yes, these are kids, yes, it's a kid's perspective, but it's being told in an adult world.
Yeah,
Like, they
but
don't
that's what
exist in a child's
that's what makes
universe like some shows do. Like,
yeah.
I'm trying to think of an example of this. I've definitely seen an example of this where it's like, I think you guys know what I'm talking about. Like, I feel like this is common on shows like Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon especially, in that the world the kid-child character exists in is not an adult-oriented one. Like, yes, there are adults around, but it's not really operating on the same logic that an adult world does. It's operating on a kid's logic because
Yeah.
that's our perspective character. I'm trying to think. Not Chowder. There's another show I'm thinking of that follows this
Flapjack?
motif. Maybe, but that one was just kind of zany.
Yeah.
That one was just kind of zany. I never really saw that one as like a this child exists in an adult world, but we're seeing things through his perspective. It's more like I would say even the adults around them kind of have like this world operates on a
I guess
child's
interestingly
it's influenced
enough,
by that child view. Whereas in Avatar, it's like they are surrounded by adult problems, but it's being introduced through a child's lens
but see, I don't. But
or a
see,
teen's lens.
that's the thing I want to focus on. I don't think it's necessarily like it's adult problems, because while the framing of it is
See,
war,
I argue the other way because they are definitely adult problems.
but see, my whole thing is that that would make it not like a kid right, because like a kid show is it has to have a focus on the struggles that a kid would be having
Well,
to
the main
relate.
characters have those struggles,
Yeah,
and the
but
audience can relate
but see,
to
that's what
them.
means to me
But
that
in
it's
terms
not.
of the world around them, the world is affected by adult problems. So that's where that extra layer comes from.
Mm,
Does it make sense?
yeah, I'm just. It's like my biggest thing would just be like it's the framing versus saying like adult problems to me is like you're having an adult problem, and it's like
See,
the
I
kid
think
being
we're
like,
both
I don't know
thinking.
what
I
job
think
to
we're
pick.
thinking of adult problems in a different sense. You're thinking
Yeah,
of adult problems as I'm talking, the kids have adult problems.
yeah,
That's not what I'm saying.
yeah.
I'm saying they exist in a world with adult problems. Like kids of today exist
That's
in a
all
world with
kids
adult
do.
problems.
Yeah,
The kid at recess maybe pushed him off the swing, but he also exists in a world with climate change. That's what I'm talking about.
mm-hmm.
That's what I'm talking about when I refer to they are surrounded by adult problems because they have the propaganda, they have the war, they do have the adults fighting around them and trying to sway them in one direction or another. Like Aang has that whole conundrum where everyone's telling him kill the Fire Lord, kill the Fire Lord, and he's like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to do that. I want to find a different route. Like even that alone, like that's not exactly a kid problem.
No.
That's when the adult world kind of influences his and he has to start thinking more like an adult. That's what pushes him to maturity and allows him to fully become the Avatar.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's my interpretation of it. You could totally walk away with a different interpretation.
Because
That's what's great
I'm
about art.
trying to
There are
equate
multiple
it
interpretations.
to like another good show that like centers around kids. And the next one I'm thinking of is like Infinity Train, because they're young, right?
Mhm.
I'm trying to remember how young they
I would
are.
say they're about teenage.
They seem like middle
They're about
school, right?
teenage. They're right about Team Avatar age.
Yeah. So to me,
I
that's
think that's an apt
and that very much
comparison.
is the like whole perspective of in a lot of things. It is a very like the kid is having a kid problem, but it is made up by an adult that had an adult problem, right? It's in a world
Yeah.
where the adult is the like having their own issues, making the world the way it is because of an adult problem. And that's what makes it
Well,
very
it's
interesting as well.
It's interesting because Infinity Train kind of takes a different route where it's like the kid has a problem. Like, for example, in season 1, Tulip's big problem is she doesn't want to accept that her parents are getting a divorce. She's scared of things changing.
Which is a
She
kid
doesn't want to
problem.
face that. That is a huge kid problem, absolutely. And the series focuses entirely on that. And they focus on it entirely through her perspective. Like we are on the train the entire time. And we also come across like themes of like nostalgia, loss, identity when she runs into the mirror train.
And then the whole
train car.
mirror
And then
season
that became a whole thing
is
itself.
finding identity specifically. Figuring out
Exactly.
which is another big
Which
kid
could
thing
relate to a kid or an adult because
Yeah.
there are adults out there who
at different
don't know who they
stages.
are, still searching.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone grows and finds themselves differently. And those messages are universal.
But that's what I think makes it like,
No, it's hard to put it into a box because depending on what experience you had and what you grew up with, different people are going to find different things relatable. Like,
yeah,
you
of course.
could be a 32-year-old who like got into an argument with one of your friends over text, and suddenly seeing your kid watch a show about their friends getting into a fight, it's like, oh, well, damn, that's relatable. Didn't know that was gonna enter my life.
But see, that's exactly the thing.
Oh, that's not his hair. That's a button. Oops.
But see, that's exactly the thing. If anything is done well, an adult can relate back. Because all you're
100%.
doing is, as an adult, you're just gaining complexity. You're not losing the foundation. Versus as
you have a different
kid,
understanding thanks to hopefully growing and emotionally maturing over the years. Like,
but
we
as
are
a
not
kid,
the same people we were as kids.
Those
At least
problems,
I would hope not.
You don't
Otherwise,
have
that's a different issue.
The problems, right? The same, because you have to gain adult problems. You don't lose kids, if that makes any sense, right? Like you always at least remember the kid problems, right? You don't, and that's why it's very like, honestly, let's just make more better kid shows, because then everybody can relate.
That is the crux of the argument.
That is really the crux of the argument, is that if you do it good enough,
better kid content.
If you do it well enough, you can always. I'm trying to port back. What's the phrase that
you can always?
What's the phrase you say when your like system takes older games from the system before it?
Remake?
No. It is a specific term when, like, say, the DS could play Game Boy Advance games. There's a term.
Oh, I know what you mean. Backwards compatibility?
Yeah,
that's what it's called.
Yeah, that's it. There's always backwards compatibility, right? There's always backwards compatibility because life is just gaining more complexity and nuance. And you're never losing this stuff, right? So there's always backwards compatibility. So if a show is good, you should always be able to go backwards and still enjoy it.
100%. And if you return to something and it's like, oh, wow, that's not as good as I remembered, it's definitely a kid show. Through and through. Oh, I only have tail details left.
You could do it.
I'm trying. He's almost done.
Right.
These tail details might be sloppy. I'm gonna do my best.
If you want to just skip them, I could do them.
No, I'm doing the tail details.
Okay. All right.
These are my tails.
Well, if they're sloppy, I'm gonna have to redo them.
They won't be sloppy. I kid. Oh, but I'm still recording.
She's a jokester, guys.
I am.
Right. Any closing questions, thoughts, theories, projections?
Yes. Speak now or forever hold your peas.
Yep, your bag of peas. Dylan's favorite saying. Because we are wrapping it up.
Just about.
Wrapping it up so I can go shout at Mars as to why she doesn't have this flats done.
It's literally almost done.
It's okay. I was very bad at doing things today. Honestly, I wasn't. I shirked actual work duties because it's like they don't have to be done today. They can be done tomorrow. Ori wants to draw. All of my drawing energy just like kicked in, and it's just like all I want to do is draw. I don't want to edit videos. I don't want to do anything else. Just let me draw, please.
It's like
Hudson looks pretty. Ooh. Thank you. I'm glad Hudson looks pretty. He's very pretty.
Okay. I thought the tail would come out terrible. It's actually coming out pretty good.
Nice. Honestly,
I am
I've
pleased with
definitely said
this.
this on stream, but very early in Hoatson's, inception, I showed him to, I'm pretty sure it was only my mom. I showed him to my mom, and my mom went, "Oh, she's so nice. I love her." And I went, "It's the guy." And she's like, "Oh."
It's a dude.
I definitely had a moment of like, I guess a little like art insecurity there, and I went, but anime boys are really pretty, so we're
Yeah.
fine. I think
Honestly,
we're
so
good.
many anime boys get mistaken for girls. I think we're fine.
I think we're fine. I'm sorry. I'm here for the mask women and the femme men. Okay.
Yes.
This is what we do. I still think about that one Genshin character. I can't remember her name that they called Dad.
Oh, Arlecchino.
Yeah, she's great. Love her.
Yeah.
Top
Father is
tier.
great.
She's great.
Father is beautiful. We love her.
Need that in my life. All right. Well, thank you all for coming. We have, of course, normal. We have chimeras on Thursday from my character design course. You guys want to come check that out? I mean,
Ooh.
that's my whole thing.
Onward and upward.
But thank you to our AC adversaries, Paris Perry, Nicole, Dichotomy Games. If you want your little tea pet on screen with us every single stream, become an AC adversary.
Yes!
Also, Doofus detectives like Lakitu, Aragorn, Canadian Lucifer Tay, and the Jester. You guys get all of the emotes built in, baked into YouTube when you become a Doofus detective. You can also become the middle tier, which is Psychic Sidekick, where you get all the videos as soon as they're uploaded. So right now we're about 3 episodes ahead. Hopefully next week I'll have 4 hopefully at the end of this week I'll have 4 to put back up. So, we are certainly a little ahead, trying to stay ahead. So, get that if you want to get that Ace Attorney video content right away.
You guys.
Yeah, but thank you all for coming. We hope to see you on Thursday, and have a lovely hump day. See you then.
Enjoy.
Good night.
Bye, y'all.